Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
We all have dreams. Dream home renovations, dream vacations, or sending our kids to their dream colleges. But finding straightforward ways to turn those dreams into realistic goals, that's where things get tricky. Merrill understands that. That's why, with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. And having the bull at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill is with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
Hello and welcome to this. It is a Christmas edition of the EggChasers Rugby podcast. The podcast that is incredibly merry and takes the festive period incredibly seriously. Tim, how are you on this very merry of days?
I'm very well, and I would like to point out the time now is... we're recording it early. It's 5:19 p.m. on the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd of December. And I mentioned that because most Christmas editions of podcasts from the grassroots set will have been done a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, ages ago. Ago. In fact, we are so on point that we know after this we're going to do our Patreon special, Ghosts of Christmas Past Patreon. Who is excited about that with all of the research that we've put into it?
Oh,
with the
yes.
research.
So much research.
Incredible amounts of research.
I think that's going to be a must listen, especially...
It's some of the things that we've got planned for that podcast.
Especially because Phil has come to this podcast, which is happening before the Patreon one, with a bag full of something, and JB has got a couple of bottles full of something in front of us as well. So, yeah, I think the Patreon podcast could be interesting today.
Yes, well, we should do our serious things first, and then as the podcast degrades, like milk, like milk on a hot day. Yeah. So anyway, hello to a very festive Phil.
Hello, JB, and hello, Tim. Hello, guys.
Hello, Phil.
Feeling very, very festive, although I've not actually finished work yet.
Of course you haven't. You never finish work.
I've got to work tomorrow, and then even some of the day after that, unfortunately.
I'm freelance. There's no such thing as a day off.
Yes.
Christmas Day is technically a work day.
Yeah,
technically.
I work for Beardmore & Co. and my surname is Beardmore, so, you know.
Do the maths.
Yeah, do the maths.
So you working just tomorrow?
No, working
tomorrow and Tuesday?
Tomorrow and Tuesday.
Wow.
Because I started a new job in early November, and I've only accrued 4 days of holiday. Oh, actually, I accrued 3.8 days of holiday. I need to take 3 of them over Christmas, so we had kind of 0.8 days of a day of holiday.
Yeah, well, Christmas Eve will end up being 0.75. I mean, Phil will do the full one, but for a lot of people, they'll take the 0.75 or 0.5.
I will do some work on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It won't be a full shift.
Right, well, let's kick this podcast off.
Well, look, I will say patreon.com/EggChasers is where you can go to...
If you could do the housekeeping, I'll serve some whiskey.
Oh, thanks for... Oh, yes.
We're going to have whiskey first, or... Oh, yeah, let's whiskey first. Taste of whiskey.
Tim, you can tell everyone...
Whiskey before beer. Okay. All right. Well, so yeah, patreon.com/EggChasers if you want to help keep the lights on, support the podcast, get extra content, including the Christmas special. It's inflation proof. It's still the same. It's still the same price it was years ago when we started.
Years ago.
It's not gone up with inflation. So
yeah, we used to say you could buy us a drink for that. Now,
I mean, JB has just poured about 6 months worth of Patreon podcasts in each of our glasses there. Always putting some water in. That means it must be above 44%. You can tell us what we're drinking in a minute.
Yeah, it is
above 40% even.
It is 44. So JB has measured it down to about 40.
Yep. Lovely. So yeah, patreon.com/EggChasers. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and contact eggchasers@gmail.com.
Before we talk about a game, why don't you tell us what we're drinking? And I'll tell you where it's from. This is from a listener. Okay,
is it?
Called Dan. Now, let me be clear. It is my whiskey, not yours, mine. He is a listener, but it's explicitly my whiskey.
Okay.
But
You're very generous.
I thought, who better to drink it with than two dear friends?
Is it whiskey with an EY or whiskey with just the straight Y?
With a straight Y.
So it's Scotland then?
It is Scotch. It's from Orkney. The Orkney Islands. And as you can probably tell if you've had a little sip of it, it is quite peaty.
I was going to say, is it peat?
It is peaty. This is 15-year-old Highland Park Viking Heart.
Very nice.
And the tasting notes. Would you like the tasting notes, or do you want to try and give me any of them?
All right,
I'm so bad at tasting notes.
So am I. And then...
Why don't you read them and pretend that you guessed them? Oh, go on then, Tim.
There we go.
Oh, that is really nice.
Mm.
I do not like whiskey particularly.
It is peaty, and yet it's smooth. It's
It
very
is.
smooth.
Yeah,
The problem with
it's
whiskey
not
tasting,
overly
right,
peated.
is when you go to a whiskey tasting group, just to get you all involved, they never tell you the answer's wrong. So you can say any nonsense. Like, I could tell you caramel. Is there caramel there?
Not explicitly, but
Chef?
JB, that's your palate.
Yeah. That's my truth.
Yes,
that is my truth.
Your lived experiences. It's caramel.
So I'm always very nervous about giving tasting notes because, you know, when you go to these events and there's no correct answers, all of a sudden you read a box and there are correct answers.
Yes, I think there's very much a lot of that.
It would be quite funny to go to one of those tasting things and see what you would have to say for them to go, no. I'm getting the sandpit from primary school.
Oh, I'm thinking of things far worse than that.
So the official tasting notes are cinnamon charred pineapple.
Cinnamon, we would be here a long time before I got that.
Which... Now I've read it, I can get that. Warm vanilla sponge cake. You will also detect hints of heather honey in its mellow peat smoke.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah,
Definitely get that.
I think it's really good.
The vanilla sponge cake,
delicious.
like how does
awesome.
it? They don't like lob someone's birthday cake in there. Chuck that in the cask.
I hope not.
We'll fish it out in a couple of months.
That is because I do like
genuinely very nice.
Yeah, some of the island whiskies can be really peaty, really, really peaty, and almost to the point where I find them undrinkable unless I'm already pretty well oiled. Whereas this as a first drink is very nice, very smooth entry.
So thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Dan. Cheers, Dan.
That can go on your little drinks.
Well, the drinks
Your
inside the
drinks
cabinet,
tray
yeah.
was looking a little bit sparse.
So which game do you want to talk about first? We may as well start with a game, and then we can go into all the politics that have been unfolding this week.
Yes.
Yeah,
do you want to do games chronologically, or
Why don't we go with the one which just happened? Because I've just finished watching.
There is a couple which has just happened, and this is one thing I will genuinely say. This weekend, I watched as much URC as I did Premiership.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you did, because I certainly have not.
on the Friday night you were watching my beloved Ulster.
I was watching Ulster v Munster. I loved that match.
I was watching Gloucester versus Quins, which was mixed bag, shall we say.
I loved it.
There was it was entertaining because there was a few interesting storylines.
Yep.
There were so many knock-ons.
Do you know what? This is the story of the Premiership this weekend. So there have been loads of errors. So two things can be simultaneously true. The first thing which is true is that these games have been a lot of fun to watch. The second thing which is true, not if you watch them live. So if you watch them on delay, so I watched the Saracens game on delay. In fact, I watched them all on delay, frankly. I realised that this is not going to be a great spectacle if you watch it live. But some of the skills on offer in the Saracens game, from Saracens in the first half, were outstanding. You know, some of the breaks and some of the offloads from Gloucester were incredibly good. But then if you pepper in all of the knock-ons, all of the scrums, before you know it, it does get a bit laborious.
And the scrum story, so if we just stick with Gloucester, Harlequins, which we were expecting to be a high-scoring game, it was not a high. It was the opposite of high-scoring. 14-0.
It was
time in 10
nearly
years.
a high-scoring game in some sense. It was a high-action game.
There was just so many knock-ons, which in itself tells one story, and it tells a lot of the knock-ons came in the midfield of Harlequins because of the brilliant physical defence from the midfield from Atkinson and Llewellyn.
Yeah, those two are great, aren't they?
They completely had Lennox Ananwu and Oscar Beard's number. and Anyanwu, who is a talented player. He's a strong boy. He's going to Montpellier next year for a lot of money. Deservedly so.
Montpellier, who beat Racing this weekend.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Just saw that.
Billy Vunipola is captain there. And Stuart Hogg was their 10.
Was he back? Because he injured his hand.
Hogg's 10, Billy's captain.
Wow. But the story was more of the strength of the centre partnership and the defensive ability of the centre partnership of Gloucester. And during the first half, those knock-ons led to a really interesting story of the two young English loosehead and tighthead for Sogbonne.
I completely agree with this.
I thought this was a brilliant little battle.
Yeah.
For Sogbonne against Finn Baxter, and one that for Sogbonne very much had the upper hand on until he went off after, 30, 35 minutes with his ankle injury.
Did he give any of the banter that he gave Genge?
Not so much.
No,
I don't think we
saw.
needed to. I mean, Finn Baxter, in current England international, probably presumably, actually, the next cab off the rank now. I mean, it looks to me as if they want him to start at some point in the near future. Completely anonymous, not only at the scrum but also on the park. I felt he had a very poor game. He had
a tough shift.
Yeah,
because he was up against it against for Sogbonne. 35 minutes in for Sogbonne, who was excellent all round. He was excellent. He was carrying. He nearly scored a try, knocked on just as he was crossing the line. But
the other ones, Knight and Blake, in the Gloucester front row. I mean, I've criticised, and not criticised, but I've thought Blake has got quite some way to go. Played really well, and Knight wasn't even meant to play, and both of them looked absolutely superb.
They did. I was considering how much Finn Russell struggled because of who was behind it. Finn Baxter.
Yeah.
Finn Russell would have
really struggled.
He would have struggled. He's got a bit of a derby, but he would have struggled against for Sogbonne. And I think actually, Baxter had Dino Lamb and Hammond behind him, they're more athletic second rows, whereas for Sogbonne had Alemano, the Argentine tight headlock, who's a big, strong boy. And the Quins scrum was shored up when Erne Herbst, who is very much the tight headlock.
Well, just to dovetail that across, and not wanting to divert down a different game, but just that is one thing. Props are always the ones that get the chat when scrums are absolutely pummeling people.
It's often more than that.
This weekend, this is what's interesting. This weekend, Sharks played the Bulls in the URC.
Ooh, okay.
Oxenche and Vincent Koch were the two props. Opposite, Wilco Lowe and Gerhard Steenekamp, who are both current box as well, but lower than them both in the pecking order.
But younger as well.
The Bulls didn't only have an edge. Oxenche was on roller skates going backwards.
Really?
Wow. Yes.
Who was... Because Etzebeth's out. Was
Etzebeth was not there.
Yeah, he's injured, isn't he?
And they had like a 19-year-old kid at hooker because of a couple of injuries and no Bongi and Benambi. So it did make me think Etzebeth and Benambi, maybe the tight headlock and the hooker... Maybe they're actually much more significant than just the simplified way you look at the 1 versus 3, 3 versus 1.
I think you're absolutely right on that. However, I also think, if I've got my ages and, not necessarily the ages, but the rankings correct, for the two established lads, it's probably not as much of a big deal as it is against the two up-and-comers. There'll be a point to prove there. And it always happens,
But you think after you get pumped in the first couple of scrums, you go, "Oh, I really better pull.
Do something here.
I better do something here." But he couldn't. The Bulls pummeled Oxenche, who's marmalised so many international scrums. He got munched all day.
He has marmalised when he's had, say, Etzebeth and or RG Sneeman.
I was interested. Did you watch it on Premier Sport?
Yes.
I need to sort my Premier Sport logins out.
Yes.
You do.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure it was on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's where I watched it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, if I had access to the right logins, I would have watched that. To be fair, that does excite me. Back to Gloucester.
Yes.
Let me give a word of praise to Ben Kay. Did you see Gloucester's first try?
I did.
My word, like the trickery involved in that. So I watched this try, and it blew my mind. And immediately Ben Kay says, "Oh, that's Llewellyn's line there." I was like, that has nothing to do with Llewellyn. Like, there is no part of this try that belongs to Max Llewellyn. So the ball comes from the scrum, whipped out to Atkinson. Atkinson dummies inside, I think, to one of the wings.
Wade.
It
was Wade, because Hathaway scored in the corner.
Yes,
Wade
so it was Wade.
inside.
So he dummies to Wade, but actually, Thomas Williams is looping around, lifts it around, gives it then to Anscombe, And then the line from Llewellyn, and Benkei is absolutely right. It took me 3 separate attempts to watch that, to work out what has Llewellyn even got to do with this move. But it was like a sleight of hand. I had to watch it 2 or 3 times just to realise what had happened. So it just shows having actual experts that know about the game on comms makes a huge difference. I would not have spotted that.
There was someone else talking about that try.
Who's that?
The man next to him, Hugo Monye, who's
talking of not experts, yes, please.
At the same time was saying it was very stop-start and stuttery and very poor by Gloucester, but also they did amazingly well to create the basically a walk-in from a strike move for Hathaway. He contradicted himself in a 10-second little monologue. In
the same way that Finn Baxter's performance was anonymous, I think we could probably categorise Hugo's in the same way there. But yeah, Benkei did exceptionally well just to spot that. I mean, it was one of those things like, do you know the way Austin just spots things? It was one of those moments. I had to watch it like 3 or 4 times.
Those two are the 2 best analysts.
I'm not sure if there's anyone even close.
Yeah,
actually,
I think those two are,
because that was just incredible spot.
Analysts in the game at the moment. Yes. I think like Sam Warburton pre and post, or at half time when there's a bit of time to consider stuff. But when it's like bang, I've just seen something and I can explain what just happened in 10 seconds and blow your mind.
I also love Benjamin Kaiser.
Benjamin Kaiser.
He's very good.
Yellow gloves and all. Yep. I think he's always ace, and he's always on point with his post-match analysis as well.
Agreed.
So on this game, I started thinking about Gloucester. I was like, this isn't a recipe for long-term success, is it? It's very exciting to see.
Well, it was a bit of a mix because they whipped it wide a few times, but they also were very tough and nuggety up front because of the scrum, because of the driving maul.
But so I don't know really where I stand on this. I can't make up my mind. Sometimes things just don't make sense. For example, Quinn's not having a head coach, but 4 coaches and accidentally winning the league somehow.
Yes, and
look where they are this season. The Gloucester situation blows my mind. So you've got a head coach who's known for lineouts. Lineout wasn't great. It was good. I mean, it was okay. The scrum was good.
Scrum was good, very good.
Gloucester have just completely changed their way of playing. Mm-hmm. They've gone from 2 of the best centres in the Premiership to 2 new best centres in the Premiership. Two very effective ones.
2 very experienced centres.
Yeah, in
Atkinson and the other Atkinson, Mark Atkinson and Chris Harris.
Yep.
Who've played up the leagues to 2 very young centres.
Well, can I broaden that question out a little bit? Because it's definitely a thought I had. Because Bristol blew my mind again.
Yeah.
How good they are.
They were phenomenal.
They scored
6 tries.
Another 6 tries, making it 44 tries in the Premiership so far in the first 8 rounds, which is 5.5 on average.
They scored 6 in the first half.
Yeah.
They scored, I think
they scored 8 altogether.
They scored 8 altogether.
8 altogether. So they've scored 44 tries in the Premiership so far this season in 8 games. They have got a try bonus point in every single match they've played, even the one they lost. So my point is, and the bigger question, because when you think about Gloucester getting such change out of this, but you jump back and look at the European weeks, and it didn't work in the same way. And what does that tell us about the Premiership? Because one of the questions I've been wrangling with is, this is great to watch, and I love it, but is this preparing players for international rugby?
I don't care about international rugby. I think this is preparing.
No. You could just say the Premiership is what it is, and that's great. But the broader question is because there's a lot that we say we watch the Premiership and go, this player's tearing it up. Like we've had emails about Fitz Harding and Gabriel Libertoy. Surely they should be considered for England. I'll come to whoever said that email when we come to that game, or we'll talk about that. But there was a bit of me wrangling with that email, going, but it's the Premiership.
But it depends who from the Premiership and playing for who. So if you have a traditional coach, for want of a better word, and Borthwick is pretty traditional, whatever you want to say about him, very, very traditional, very clever at what he does, very good at what he does, but maybe he doesn't want a Bill Matter style player. Maybe he does actually, but do you see what I mean? Like, it has to be the players for the system, and I think.
But who in international rugby plays like Bristol or like Gloucester are starting to do?
Fiji.
Well, no, even Fiji don't really.
Yeah, their success more recently is because they have calmed it down a bit.
Okay, so I guess we can circle back around to Gloucester.
Yeah, of course.
Time. But I think Bristol's really interesting because I was thinking about this and I thought they did 2 things really, really well, and it wasn't their attack. It was their maul defence.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right? And I wonder if, because they're so good with open play, and that's the source of most of their tries, why even bother with maul attack? I mean, they can maul attack as it happens, but why bother? Why not spend all your time on maul defence? Because if that's the source of Leicester Tigers' tries, I think they went to the corner 4 times and went nowhere. And they are a great mauling team. So that was the first thing that they did really well.
Yeah.
And the second thing was they do enough in the scrum. And they don't menace it. You know, they're not awesome, but they do enough. And I wonder if their style of play is not so much, it doesn't physically break teams down, but I think mentally it takes a hell of a toll because everyone's so uncertain.
I think one thing Gloucester have been doing this year that changes, because it's not just that they're going, oh, we're amazing at attack. I think the transitions are where it's at. And Bristol, the second there's a turnover, it's like everyone's mindset is go time.
Yeah, particularly second half.
Yeah.
But, you know, you think about how they play, it must be very frustrating. If you're a physical team like Leicester are, and they love their physicality, you just can't do what you want to do. You can't get into the game. It's like, you know, you want to punch someone on the floor and you can't because they're rolling around, they're grappling and they're being a pain. And like, you want to hit someone and you can't hit them because they're throwing the ball over your head, or they're playing in these unconventional ways, or Ep33 is running sideways with the ball in one hand. You're not coached in training to play against these players. I mean, how would you think Leicester Tigers run their attack versus defence drills? It's not against lads with running the ball.
But when Leicester Tigers have possession, they weren't able to do what they wanted to do.
No,
well.
Yeah, well, and also they conceded so many points that what they would do is probably irrelevant anyway. So they've scored early doors. They scored two tries. And then after that, unless they can find another source of points somewhere, which would be their driving maul, and Bristol said absolutely no to that, then what are they going to do? And then they're chasing the game. They've got to come out of their shape. They've got to try different things. And they looked rubbish going forward.
But just back to the broader point for a second, just to wrap that up. What do you... Is the Premiership just what the Premiership is? Or is the Premiership preparing players to...
I think the Premiership is extracting value from players, right, who wouldn't otherwise be considered for international or indeed Premiership rugby. And what I mean by that is, if you've got all the money in the world, you probably start to look a bit like Toulon. You probably start to look a bit like Bath. Right? When you don't have that much money, you need to find value in all sorts of players, and you need to play to the strengths of players who are a little bit more unconventional. Yeah, so
I guess the question is then, how much should we just view the Premiership, because Six Nations is around the corner, and people are going to start to go, like we like to say, we've had emails going, Fitzharding, surely he's playing so well for Bristol, he needs to be considered for England. But is there that thing you go, but that international rugby is not like that?
It's not like that, is it?
I don't know. Because I think Fitzharding is a
Steve
classy
Borthwick's
player.
rugby isn't like that, which is more important.
I would say it's not, but it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
It is a spectrum, and if we say from the spectrum of ultra nuggety and hard-edged and box kick everything and pick and go everything. Close quarters to completely free-flowing. Yeah. International rugby is always more on the close quarter stuff. But where I think this approach in the Premiership can really pay dividends is in international rugby, you might get 2 chances. You might get 2 turnovers.
100%.
Take a great example. The Springboks beat England in November a month ago. They had 3 mistakes from England. One led to the Grant Williams try, one led to the, I think it's Etzebeth, the charge down kick, and one led to the Cheslin Colby try in the corner.
Great point.
If you don't, you have to be 100% clinical with those, and the more you can practice your clinicality, the better it is. Like, look at France, are a brilliant team. They don't wing it from wing to wing all the time, and they're not just all crossfield kicks. But when they start getting over the gain line and they start their offloading game, they're so clinical and so good at doing it. So
it's fair.
I don't think it has to be one or the other.
And a good example of that is Ireland, who didn't look great in November, and Leinster have struggled a bit. And that's not because...
Struggled a bit, but won every game.
Struggled a bit, won every game.
Struggled a bit, but won every game.
And it's not that they're bad. It's actually their line out hasn't gone very well, and so they haven't been able to do that structure part, and it's meant that the rest falls apart. So yeah, I agree with you. But it's just interesting because the way that teams looked great in Europe last week and then got pumped in the Premiership this week, or the reverse.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know week to week, and sometimes I guess it's just the matchup with the teams.
Yeah, and this week has not been very Premiership because all the games have pretty much been a blowout. I mean, there's not been very... The Quinn's Gloucester game is probably the closest off the top of my head.
But Quinn's got nil.
Yeah.
You're right, it was.
Some of their players had an awful... And Anyanwu was awful.
And then
he's horrific.
He's such a good player, Anyanwu, but it was just such a bad game.
I kind of think, after watching that, and I've been watching him a few times this season, I saw him at Sale as well, I think they're right to move him on. I think there will be better options.
And if he's been offered 300k, which is the rumour...
Off you go.
100%.
Because he's not been called up by England yet. I don't think he has.
I don't think... I think it'd be... for a lack of 12s, which there is in England, I think there's numerous players who would be above him.
One of which should be Seb Atkinson.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
100%.
They should have a look at him immediately.
Now, I'll tell you who they're going to look at when January 2026 comes around.
Sam Arnold.
Who's out for the season with a knee injury.
Bernard Janty van Rensburg.
Yes.
Yeah,
who was player of the match.
Again.
Do you think he was player of the match? Rivalvo.
Rivalvo was unplayable. Like you said before, how do you train for Ibitoye running like that with ball? How do you train to play against Rivalvo?
Yeah.
How on earth do you... Like, Leicester don't have anyone like that.
No, and nor would they want one.
Nor does anyone else in the league. He's so good.
I mean, they put training outside. Parisse and Kata running about straight, on rails, effectively.
So for all the criticism of Pat Lam, mostly warranted over the past few years, to get rid of Sir Charles Piutau and Semi Randrandra, very talented players, very unpredictable and hard to play against players, but were on phenomenal money.
Yeah.
You're talking 1.5 million just for the two of them, and to bring in Ibitoye and Ravuvu, who must be, if they
not
were
that expensive.
If they were on 1/4 of that between them, I would be surprised.
And develop Bates and Lane from their own academy.
Yeah.
That is some phenomenal business.
Just on international
Pat
rugby,
Lam.
there is a certain type of player that I always want to see get international colours. And that is a player that makes things happen. So any player that can just make things happen. I think Mitchell makes things happen.
Yeah.
The guy in Bristol that makes things happen is Ogre. Like,
I love Ogre.
In the same way that what's his name, Langdon does. Like he keeps grafting until something happens. He's doing things which are maybe not that traditional. I mean, Ogre is a different class actually in terms of his handling skills, his running skills. He can even kick. Like he's a great player.
Do you think?
But he's maybe not big enough. Maybe not. You know.
I was watching the Bristol Leicester game with my old man, and he was asking about Ogre because Ogre was just everywhere. He was playing brilliant. I was like, I think he's been in a wider training squad. But
Toured to New Zealand. Didn't play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah. But I just don't think he will play. He certainly won't get much time because if you're playing against, I don't know, Mal Vaca or Bongin Benambi or Malcolm Marks or one of those boys, he's giving away like 2 or 3 stone.
He is. But do you know who else gives away 2 or 3 stone playing against those boys? Someone like Dion Ferry or Morgan van Staden. Both of which are recognised Springbok hookers now.
Yes,
at the highest level. I mean, I think Dion Ferry finished the World Cup final.
But they're playing with Oxney and Vincent Koch and Malherb and Sneyman and Etzebeth. So Springbok you can get away with having, like Quagga Smith
should definitely be a hooker. Is
lightweight. For any other nation, he would be very lightweight. You can get away with it because you've got Peter Steph-Totoy and not anymore, Dwayne Vermaelen or Hanekom or Jasper Wiese. Like you've got all these monsters around him, so you can get away with it. When you've got going back a few years, but like the 2019 World Cup final where England were summarily beaten up front by the Springboks, and they had second rows of Itoje and Courtney Laws, and they were just too lightweight for that game. You can't in that scenario.
Genge and Will Stewart are the props. Genge is good as well. Again,
Genge was good.
Does Genge things?
Genge was very good.
I mean, talking about a guy who's just not big enough for international, that would be the guy. Struggles to squat 200 kilograms. I don't know what to tell you.
He looks stronger this year.
He looks fast. I mean, he looks like, we've said it before, Jasper Wiese, who plays in the front row.
No, he looks like a number 8.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have. I wouldn't mind Ogre on the flank and Genge at 8 for England. I mean, that wouldn't be a terrible option. But he was very, very good. He's very good, and he also had a massive point to prove at Leicester. And he did.
He did.
It was just a remarkable performance.
It was, especially because Bristol lost McGinty to what looked like a bad knee injury.
That might be a season ender. That
it's not good.
I think he's been the best 10 in the Prem.
Yeah, I
First half of the season.
Always told you that he's very good.
I would agree with you.
Maybe not that good, but very good.
It is great to see Pat Lam getting the best out of him again.
Just on Pat Lam.
But just on that point. But Worsley, that is Joe Worsley's boy, isn't it?
No.
Is it not?
Joe Worsley's son is in the Saracens Academy, and he's a back row.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes more sense, because he didn't have the same jawline and shaped head as Joe Worsley. Okay.
So
but Worsley played well.
Just go back to Pat Lam a second. So I've criticised Pat Lam. All my criticisms remain incredibly valid, particularly about his character. But you can't really argue with these results. I mean, you just can't.
You can't.
You just, fine, whatever. Whatever I've said. I still don't think he's particularly flexible. I still think he can only play in one way. But the way seems to be working. And it made me think, if you compare rugby to football now, particularly with the salary caps and whatnot, how do you judge whether to keep a coach? Because if they'd have got rid of Pat Lam a year ago or 2 years ago, when I think it was completely justified, but maybe a bit of an expensive option.
It would have been a very expensive option.
Yep.
I guarantee that.
I actually think that, they'd be thank you very much. I think they'd be in a much worse situation. Also, it would make no sense to get rid of Baxter this year because of the of this run of form. And also, who else is struggling? Northampton. Here we go. Go for it.
What am I drinking, Philip?
I don't know. We're on a random. Okay. Every can is different.
Okay,
so
I've got
random selection.
I've got Ross Mundo.
I'm on a
which is a hazy pale ale.
Hazy pale classic.
So I'm on a Euro Asian fusion, which is weird to have your internet preferences printed on a can. And it is a Rascals, a family business.
Oh, very good. And I'm on a West Coast Sesh by Santa Monica and Forest Road Breweries. There you go. These are
nice.
From Friends of the Pod, 52 Beer 52.
Old friends of the pod.
Old friends. Have they not advertised?
Yeah. Well, what have you done? What have you done for us lately? That's what I'd like to know.
Great question.
Yeah.
A Cornerstone still going? Are they still a company?
Well, so
they send me razor blades
cool.
every couple of months.
So I had a chat with the founder of Cornerstone not so long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, and they were going to launch an extra product or an extra service for this.
Yes, I remember they were going to use us as a bit of a pilot.
Yes, for ED.
Yes, which I think because I'm on their mailing list
for ED.
Not for ED.
It's like, send me some samples. So we were all ready to go with the adverts, and then last second they pulled it because something to do with, I don't know, regulation or clinical evidence or something.
Do you know what that just reminded me of? Do you remember the advert that Pele did?
I would.
I would.
A remarkable advert. I would.
Talk to your doctor. I would.
Good old Pele.
Good old
R.I.P.
So how do you decide if you're going to keep a coach now?
Well, I think there is an element, going back to Pat Lam, of trust the process. Like, you shouldn't be the football reactionary, lose a few. Like, sometimes you do need to get someone out when it's clear it's not working, but you shouldn't be too reactionary, and you should trust that you've picked the right man, they're building the right direction, and the process will work. It might just take some time.
Yeah, I think if you've got a coach with a clear set of ideas, and you believe in those ideas, but this year hasn't worked because of. Yeah, you will have bad seasons.
Yeah.
Northampton are having a bad season, and they're champions. So I think
they're great in Europe.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to take a little bit of a American football mindset to this, even though they hammer their coaches on a regular basis, which is you need a team right now which is ready to win. Now, Northampton are ready to win, though.
Well, they lost.
Laws, Ludlam, Waller.
Yeah,
but basically they're leaders. They lost their leaders.
But actually, they don't seem that important.
Furbank, their captain, broken arm.
But if with those three players they were winning, without those three players they are losing.
They are not.
So
maybe there's a correlation there.
You could say they're important from that perspective.
Well, on coaches which might be leaving, have you heard the rumour of whom of which career Owen Farrell has just ruined again.
Don't blame it all on Farrell. See a
Second time he's ruined it.
See a Khaleesi.
I mean, I could quite believe there is some substance in this. See, there's been noises bubbling around for a while that all is not well there.
Do you think Jackie Lorenzetti is the kind of guy who trusts the process long term?
Exactly my point. Yeah, exactly my point.
You do have questions, don't you, if you're Jackie Lorenzetti? Like, you've got all this money, right? All this money. Now, granted, we've gone out and we've got you Owen Farrell, and he's injured, so we can't blame it on Owen Farrell. I mean, I would love to at this point. It'd just be so much fun. But I can't and I won't, because it's definitely, of everyone's fault, it can't be his.
It can't be.
It just can't be, right? So let's just park that. The Springbok captain has left you.
Let his mates down, like Joe Marler.
Yeah, just like Joe Marler. He's just disappeared off. More about him later. And with all this extra cash, you've bought your son. Really? You think Dan Lancaster? I mean, let's just scour the world for 10s. And the best available 10 is from the Championship. And he happens to share your surname. How do you think that's going to go down in the changing room?
Wasn't brought in.
Well, he didn't play this. He plays in the B team basically when they go to away games. As per last week against Sale Sharks. No, he has started, but more and more lately, he's the second choice. Gibert has been starting.
Well, as they start losing, and his dad gets more desperate. I mean, as he needs to win games, he'll have to pick the best players.
Yeah.
But you just don't go there unless your name is Ford or Farrell, and you're a coach. You don't pick your son. It is kind of what I would be thinking.
Yeah.
Because it's just a recipe for disaster, particularly in a foreign country, particularly if your son comes from the Championship. Like, it's not the same thing.
You're on a losing run. And you've got Gibert, who's a French 10, who's a good French 10.
Yep.
You've been kept on the bench by your son. It's just such a bad look.
Isn't it? I've said it about Lancaster so many times. Like, there's many ways to win a game of rugby, and I think there's many types of personalities and coaches you need that can be successful in rugby. And I stand by the fact that Stuart Lancaster is a great coach for a sixth form or a academy. And that's not even a slight. Like, he's got immense knowledge of the game. I'm sure his drills are incredible. I'm sure he knows everything about skill development. But on the sharp end of winning rugby, you need probably someone more like a Gatland or...
We've got two big chunks of evidence now. So in the head coach or director of rugby, the top man role for England and for Racing, inadequate.
Completely. Totally.
Even the senior coach role, he had success, perhaps not as much as he should have done, but he had success at Leinster.
Yeah, I mean, you want...
That's where he should be going back into a top-level coaching role rather than a director of rugby.
Do you know where he'd be awesome at? And this is not even a joke. Like, he'd be awesome at Saracens. Under Mark McCall. Mark McCall's like, do you know what? We're going to do this sneaky thing which my set of analysts have done. Can you put on the Cohen Stewart and make sure that they execute these skills and develop the things that we need to produce this thing? But if you ask him to do the Mark McCall thing of how are we going to win this game? Oh, I don't know. Be good people.
He's now fully priced out of ever doing that again.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Unless he is willing and able to take that massive financial backstep. Because the role that you've just described, which is a very important role,
completely,
might be worth, I don't know, a third or a quarter of what he's currently earning.
Well, if you think about, say, the All Blacks, right? They've got a handful of world-class coaches who everyone's heard of, but you don't hear about them, if that makes sense. And they've got a head man, and the head man then delegates to the coaches of what he needs. Same with England. Like, no one really knew who Felix Jones was, unless you're into your rugby. Like, you've got to be into your rugby to realise that Felix Jones...
South Africa,
it's a bloody good coach. South Africa, so that's what you need.
I'd also say being a head coach and not speaking French at a top 14 club,
it's kind of important, right?
That's pretty tricky. That,
yeah.
And people like who is a head coach that's English, Jeremy Davidson at Castor.
Okay,
he was a assistant coach for years while he bedded in, learnt to speak English, and is now a head coach. Ronan O'Gara, he did go in as an English speaker, as the main man, didn't he? Or was he an assistant at La Rochelle?
Did he go in as the main man?
I think he was an assistant at Racing.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, he was. And his journey is incredible. Like, if you want to
he's done...
L'opportunité, c'est effing enorme.
And also, again...
He is one who's done it the right way.
Do you know what I said before about the Premiership, how you build a team? Well, I think Ronan O'Gara gets this in abundance. How do I win matches? I have an idea. Let's get massive men. That's La Rochelle are exactly the team that I would build if I had all the money in the world. But mine might be slightly bigger. but
Bigger.
slightly bigger. Yeah.
Who are you going to get?
There are two lads in
available?
Toulouse. So as I understood
Yeah,
it,
yeah. Toulouse. You're not. La Rochelle are never going to be able to buy someone off
well,
Toulouse.
apparently Toulouse are going to go for Jean-Henri Colombe.
Georges-Henri Colombe.
George-Henri Colombe, even. Also, do you know who the potential replacement is for Stuart Lancaster? This will interest you, Tim.
The guy at Bayonne.
It is the guy at Bayonne, yeah.
Doing a good job. My beloved Bayonne won again.
Would you do a direct swap for Stuart Lancaster? You're a big Stuart Lancaster fan?
No, I love the way that Bayonne play. And it's interesting, you talked about the big men at La Rochelle. This is where I think that, and just dovetailing back slightly to the conversation I started earlier, the top 14, I think, genuinely really does demonstrate the spectrum you talked about, Phil, and how you can go from structured, and like La Rochelle play kind of English rugby with massive men.
Yeah.
And then Bayonne play proper French rugby.
How much of that do you think is the geography? And because the weather conditions are generally worse in La Rochelle, better in Bayonne. Or is it just how much is the coaching?
I think it is the coaching and the philosophy. Some of that might be ingrained in the club's DNA, which might come from the weather potentially.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question. But what I do know is I spent a couple of hours with Nick Bendon on, who's a coach at Bayonne. And he says that they have their philosophy is pied ou main, is what they say.
By hand or foot?
By hand or foot.
Oh. I know my French.
By hand or foot. And basically it doesn't matter what you do, where you do it, how you do it, just you get the ball to the space. So that's where Bayonne were one of the first teams that started the whole thing that now is ubiquitous, which is the crossfield kick pass.
Yeah.
It was basically space is there, bosh, kick it, get it there, and they'll go. And basically, if you kick loads, then the opposition will drop players, and then there's space. Then you go with the hands, and then you go. And it's so that kind of philosophy is. And top 14 is you can see the teams and go, that's an English style, that's a proper French style, structured, unstructured. It's really, really interesting when you get those matchups. And I think the Premiership's just starting that cycle.
Totally.
Very top 4, and we saw it with like Saracens, English.
It's the thing I'm enjoying
English
most about
structured versus Northampton unstructured.
Well, that's the thing I'm enjoying most about the Premiership is the various identities which are really coming through all the teams now, and we didn't have that before the salary cap was tightened, and now we have it in abundance. I mean, it's probably not as ingrained as say like the French identities, but it's still evident for anyone to see.
How was your beer, Tim?
It's nice actually. Just looking at where I might find this again because it's
Mojo's tonight.
Oh, mate, I wish I could.
You're on the road up to Edinburgh tomorrow.
I've got family over and then I'm on the road. I've spent all day baking today.
Ooh.
Made a load
Stollen?
of sausage meat. I haven't made stollen. Made some 3 big sausage meat plats.
Nice.
We've made a Christmas cake, loads of mince pies, biscuits and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that's my contribution. We've got all focaccia breads.
Oh, nice.
Been non-stop in my house today, and
Bloody hell.
Edinburgh tomorrow.
Tell you what, things sound like they're going okay over on YouTube. What is on YouTube this week, Tim? As we're here,
a little bit. What's been going on? Oh, just some reaction to the games.
You with your turkey hat on?
yeah. What was the that
was just I was just wearing the turkey hat for one of for just a URC preview, but Premiership URC. I've been summarising each of the top 10 international teams' years.
Mm-hmm.
Grading it.
Who comes top?
South Africa, I gave a 9 out of 10.
Good.
What would you say I gave England out of 10?
5.
Yeah, 5 I think is about right.
I gave them 4.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Who has got the best score for the worst results? I.e., who have you graded the highest because they're playing well relative to what they have?
Italy, maybe?
Yeah, Italy.
Italy, yeah.
I think I gave them an 8.
Did you?
Yeah.
Strong for Italy.
Well, yeah,
Italy's got some lovely components in that
best
team.
Ever Six Nations performance. And Scotland, who actually you sort of think like, oh, they've had a good year. I gave them a 6 because they were
flattered to deceive, don't they?
In the Six Nations, they were rubbish.
Apart from when they play England.
Except for when they play England. Yeah.
They have massively got England's number.
Yep.
And everyone else,
yep,
not as good.
Mm. Well, Finn Russell had a good game this week. Ish.
Tough first half.
Tell you what, now, this won't surprise you, but I watched all of the Newcastle game. From start to finish, didn't miss a second of it. There are...
How much time do they spend talking about Dimes?
Not enough, frankly. Right?
Dimes is getting so much almost every day. There's another Rugby Pass article about.
Well, look, he is their star player. He is their star draw.
He wants to follow the model he used at Sale Sharks and become an owner, shareholder.
You know, he could probably do it. He did
that, didn't he? Own like at 25% of Sale.
He definitely.
He was a named director.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had something like that. But yeah, he did. He did own something, but I don't know exactly what. Newcastle, right? The thing I'm liking about Newcastle at the moment is there are so many shades of early sale, pre-money. And what I mean by that is, like, if they get their best 15 out, that they're going to be competitive. Doesn't mean they're going to win, right? But they're going to give it a damn good go. And I can already feel the romance that I used to feel when you used to watch, like, Jonathan Mills trot out and, like, all these players, which combined were worth about £3.50.
James Phillips.
Yeah, exactly right. And here they come, and they're going to be hard.
Phillips in the row.
Oh, so good.
Nuggety.
So, and then a bunch of kids which he plucked out from nowhere, who actually turned out to be really quite good.
Tom Brady on the wing.
Yeah, Sam James,
Will Addison,
like all Mike Haley, people you've never really heard of since they went, and then there you go. And you see the same thing now in Newcastle. Like, they're playing for each other. The biggest weakness they have is they have nobody, and I mean nobody, after that 15. Like, once you get below that 15, it's like, I don't know who these people are, and that's exactly where it went wrong this weekend. So the first half, they looked really good. Really combative, really hard, played the conditions well. Dimes makes everything dead simple so they can execute it well. I think King, the attack coach, has actually added sort of an understandable and executable style of play, which the lads can do fairly well. And then second half, Bath empty the bench, and there's nothing they can do about it. You're just completely helpless. But that's the next stage for Newcastle. If they can get some money and some reinforcements, who knows?
Just to make your point about emptying the bench, so Bath empty the bench and they're bringing on Beno Abano, Thomas Totoy, Ted Hill, Sam Underhill, Kurt Sear, Will Butt comes on.
Will Butt's a great player. I love Will Butt.
The game was over by that point. It was only a few minutes left. But just the pack that they can bring off the bench is... There's not many teams that can compete with that.
Oh, and they had them rattled for the first half. They had them properly rattled.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, not so much. And the parallel with Sale is Sale used to lose all their good players. So Gaskell would go, and then Tommy Taylor would go. You'd have what's his name? Guy who plays for Wales now. Henry Thomas. Like every time they had
the guy that plays for Wales. Yeah.
Anyone who was any good, right, would go immediately, and that's
Dimes couldn't keep them.
That's what he's got to do, and that's what he will do. So it's quite good fun watching Newcastle at the moment. If you like that kind of thing, I still think they have no place in the Premiership, for the record. I still have,
because of that approach.
Yeah, and I still think the owners need to. I mean, they are trying to get rid of it. And they need to. They need to go, and they need to have someone in who wants to spend the money. But whether they will or not, I don't know. But Dimes doing a great job.
Did you see who the reserve loosehead prop was for Newcastle?
The reserve loosehead prop.
He's been on the team sheet for like the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Lockwood?
Nope. Lockwood's back row.
No, he's not. There's Lockwood in the front row.
Is there another? There's 2 Lockwoods.
Sam and
Freddie
Lockwood.
Yeah.
But he might not even be there.
Second row. Anyway, no, not Lockwood. So the it makes me laugh every time I read this. The reserve loosehead for Newcastle is called Rewcastle. It's Newcastle with an R. Rewcastle, which makes me think of, it's like Scooby-Doo trying to say Newcastle.
Very good.
Guy Pepper. There you go.
Guy Pepper.
As soon as he gets good, leaves.
You just reminded me, as we sort of look down the table and then beyond, there is now only one out of the national leagues or above. There is only one unbeaten team now.
Who's that?
Leinster.
Richmond lost their first match
against who?
Local rivals, Roslyn Park.
Do you know, I've not checked the local scores. I was offered 2 games this week, one at level 5 and one at level 7. I shall not name the teams because of my unique ability to play front row. And because I said no to one, I would have done the second one. I wouldn't have done the first one. I'm not going to play level 5.
Did Toc H play?
No, we had a week off.
Week off.
But I'm just not going to play level 5 for a team that are getting battered by 70 points every week.
Would you have been? How would that have worked?
You just register as your second club.
Oh, okay.
But the other team I would have played for a level 7. It would have taken me 3 hours to get there, but I would have done it. I would have done it. But I didn't, because I've already said no.
I'm just trying to look if
there was a Manchester derby. Or
Stockport,
Sedgley Park against
Sedge versus Sale.
Oh right, okay.
At Park Lane, and it was Park Lane on a weekend like this where the wind is up is a tough place to play. There's a slope, and you're on the top of the hill, exposed to the wind coming in from the southwest, and it was a 14-12 victory for Sedgley Park.
Really,
a good result.
That's a good result.
It's an important result.
How's your body? Is it fixed yet?
I'm still not 100% fixed from bloody North Dorset Sevens.
Any danger of a run out at Sedge over?
I have thought they're playing on it's an 8 p.m. kickoff on the 27th.
That's a nightmare. I like the afternoon and then getting
afternoon and then getting on it. So that won't finish until 10 o'clock at night.
No, it won't, will it? And then what are you going to do? Straight
home,
straight to town, straight to town.
Well, you're not going to sleep at that time, are
no,
you?
No, you're not.
Game of rugby.
Coursing with adrenaline and beer. Yeah. But if you play, I'll play.
I injured myself so badly last time I played. It's such a horrible game to play in because it's like a combination of the seconds, thirds, and fourths versus all the old first team players.
That lad.
It's such a horrible.
Who was the boy? Someone Krause,
Juan Krause
came on second half. What is he, like 6'5" or something?
He's about 6'4". He's a second row, back row.
Unreal.
South African, obviously.
What was he, 40? He's older than us.
Yeah, no, he's about our age. He's about 40.
Absolute dominator.
Yeah.
One half of rugby, absolutely dominated everything.
I played for years with Krause. He's a good bloke. He's a good lad. He's a good rugby player.
Yeah.
Back in a bit more grassroots rugby and back to Regional 2 Thames, London and South East Division.
Yes, please.
Old Habs had a tough one. It was the London Scottish Lions are now top, having beaten Old Habs. Aylesbury lost again in a high-scoring thriller. A 80-point thriller went Hemel Hempstead's way, 44-36.
Oh, no.
Aylesbury.
Didn't even get they must have got one losing bonus point.
My beloved Aylesbury.
And that's following that heartbreaking home defeat to Marlow last week.
We have to, right?
Marlow lost as well.
Good. We have to, right? I know we said against Habs, but I don't think we should. We have to go to an Aylesbury home game this season.
We should go to Aylesbury. Yeah,
we should put it in the diary and we should go down.
Maybe tie it in with one of the Six Nations games. So
that's actually a really good idea.
We can watch Aylesbury and watch the Six Nations.
Let me have a look at the
Aylesbury
fixtures.
Boys.
See what good fixtures they've got coming up at home.
We should definitely do that. Can I talk for a second about Saracens and a little trend in the game?
Yes, please.
And this maybe ties back to what we were talking about before. Saracens last season, famously and critically for our observations, had dreadful props.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
They were really struggling at scrum time.
Yeah.
And they obviously identified this because of their signings, including Carre and Brantingham and Fraser Balmain.
Parasites. Brantingham, parasites.
Parasites, yeah, exactly.
Why did Dave Dimes, do you not know?
Dimes would call them parasites. I loved seeing this Saracens front row, which was the old school props.
Well, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Balmain, certainly.
Balmain he's a phenomenal scrummager. He doesn't do anything apart from that. He'll win you some jackal turnovers.
He used to score quite a few tries for Gloucester. If you go back a few years.
His shape now, he's always been a heavy set lad. Yeah. His shape now is
not good.
Unbelievable.
And, you wonder, don't you, about the conditioning coaches at Saracens who turned Will Skelton into... Well, they changed his career.
Yeah,
they genuinely changed his career. He was like somebody who played. And
he was a big boy, but he was just overweight and slow.
20 kilograms off him? Like, they must be licking their lips when they see Balmain walk through the door. But yeah, nothing's happened.
He's just stayed the same.
And also, but I don't agree with you.
Mass moves mass.
This is true. But I don't agree with you on Carre, actually. I think Carre is incredibly dynamic.
So, the reason I say that for Carre is because he's just such a big lump.
Huge.
He is very good round the park.
Yeah.
And I think, it was Gatland?
It wasn't Gatland. It was Pivot. pivot?
I think it was Gatland. I think it was before the World Cup. I think he didn't play in the 2023 World Cup.
That rings a bell.
Because it was Gatland in charge at that point, and he set him fitness targets, and Carey did not meet them, so Gatland jettisoned him. I think it's so short-sighted because he's such a good scrummager. He's so enormous, and he is not a weakness around the park at all.
Well,
not at all.
Well, the thing is about that, you say it, but we don't really know, because what we think about when we think of him is how does he run the ball? And he runs it great, but are we seeing his interventions at ruck? Are we seeing his interventions in defence?
Maybe not.
And that's what I'd like to see, actually.
But I just find it. He's just such a good player.
Yeah,
he's such a big lump. His thighs and his calves.
I mean, you think about Wales, right?
Enormous.
Their two loose heads could be Rhys Carey and Nicky Smith.
Yeah.
Now, I know the current loose heads are fairly well established, but those are two bloody good loose heads.
Very good loose heads.
Right, so when you're struggling as an international team, and one of the things you're struggling with is the quality of players and size up front, and you're using all sorts of lads with weird body shapes, why not these guys?
Nicky Smith's not that big, is he? He's
No,
not
but he can really
But he's
damage.
a great scrummager.
Like,
he's just great all round.
Yeah.
So it was with Saracens, particularly in the first half until Jamie George came on, it was quite nice to see the difference between these two old school props. And Carey, granted, I do agree with you. Carey's more than just an old school prop, but certainly aesthetically, he's pretty old school.
Yeah, in the same, it's kind of similar to Mako actually.
Yeah. I'll go with Mako in his prime was more old school, and then Theo Dan, who had a great game. He was superb, but he is this new generation of hooker, and I'd count Ogre and Thacker and Curtis Langdon and Dan Frost and numerous others. Blamire is a great example of these hookers. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The problem that England have is all of those dynamic new generation of hookers, maybe they are just slightly too small at the moment. You want someone who's that dynamic,
that'd be in my
10
mind,
kg heavier.
But in my mind, that is Blamire. He's probably the biggest of the lot.
Yeah, he might be the biggest of the lot. Yeah,
because they messed around with Jamie George. I think he's done. Even though he's captain,
he's such a good all-round player.
I'm done with that. And then it goes to Cowan Dickey, who again is a very good player, but a bit
very good player. Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Ulster's problem next year.
Ulster's problem?
Yeah.
Ulster have got many, many problems. How long have you got?
Well, okay. Well, one of Ulster's problems next year is going to be... who is the Northampton number 8?
Augustus.
Joanno Augustus.
Now, as we're watching him today, I was thinking... What is this guy exactly? Like, he was not a big signing, but he was a key signing for Northampton a few years ago. And it just occurred to me, why do I not like this guy that much? I don't dislike him, I don't like him. And the reason I came to today was he's not fast enough to be Ben Earl, and he's not big enough to be Tom Willis. Like, he does neither thing particularly well. He's somewhere bang in the middle there. And as such...
The 2 European weeks against Castra and the Bulls, he was massive. He was a ball carrier.
Yeah, he was man of the match in
the
one
Castra
of those,
game.
Was it the Castra game? He was great in both games.
Yeah.
You could watch a load of the Northampton boys in this game. Like, if this was the only time you saw Tommy Freeman...
Now, I've thought about this...
you'd be like... if this was the only time you saw Alex Mitchell...
Whoa.
Who is
Tom Pearson.
Tom Pearson,
awful game.
He had a 10-minute period,
second half,
just after half time, where he was ace. But basically, if you said JB, if someone had said JB has been saying for the last 2 years that Curtis Langdon should be the start or should be on England radar and you watch the first 50 minutes of this game, you would be like, JB has been doing some unwise things.
Right,
Yes.
finally, I'm going to sit down and watch this lad that he's been raving about. Fine. What?
You could list any of that Northampton team for most of that game.
Yeah.
Including, I forgot his name now. Who plays fullback? Who played Hendy. Who has been great.
Stuart Barnes cursed him by putting an article out today saying he should be England's starting 15.
I only saw that after I'd watched the game. I was like, that is not aged well at all.
Yeah.
Hendy's a brilliant player, but this was just a bad game. It's one of those games where Saracens multiple times over the last few years have taken frustrations out on Northampton Saints. This is just another example.
What Stuart Barnes said was, had Rassi Erasmus been in charge of England, he would have already been capped and a key part of the team.
On what basis, by the way?
Hendy.
Yeah,
Hendy's a great player.
Hendy is a great player, but does Stuart Barnes look at him and go, "Oh, that guy looks like, name your Springbok"? Because I can't think of a single Springbok.
Things happen when he's on the pitch.
He's different. Yeah, in the same way, I think about Ogre, he makes things happen. I have no doubt about that. But equally, I don't see any evidence that the Springbok head coach would go, yes, that's my guy.
Well, I've got the Saracens game recorded to watch, so just to fast forward through and just catch up with, because I was watching the 1872 Cup.
You're going to this one?
I'm going to this game next week.
Yeah,
and are they back to back? Are they?
Yeah, they're back to back, and the winner of the cup is the aggregate score. So unfortunately, it's already done. Glasgow won by 19 points. On my video on YouTube, I predicted a Glasgow. No, I thought it would be closer than that. Actually, I'm just going back on myself. They won by 19 points, 34.
It was good. Edit it.
33-14, and they were 33-0 up. And it was only 2 late tries for Edinburgh that got them an error.
33-0 up.
It was a demolition. Glasgow are a legit team.
Well, they're champions of the URC, aren't they?
I mean, winners of the URC, but potentially, if they get home fixtures in the European knockout rounds, they could go deep.
Well, I watched the end of the Toulon game, and they were a bit unlucky. If it wasn't for the Baptiste Saran penalty with a few minutes to go, it was a good game. They're a good team.
Edinburgh have got issues, but Glasgow they're proper.
Who's coach of Edinburgh now?
Franco Smith.
Oh, Franco Smith. Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Do you want to just a brief little? You just mentioned Northampton, and an email has just landed. Obviously, we normally record the email in a couple of hours' time, so people might email after the pod this week. But Jack Bullen has said, this is on Northampton. Hi guys, thoughts? Saints won the Premiership before they ruined their logo. Now they're 8th.
I thought about this.
Coincidence?
I'm not saying correlation equals causation.
However,
but
and he also points out, he says it's labelled men's and women's rugby, and we've had the Six Nations logos been done, which are they look ridiculous. They are horrendous.
Well,
but he said, but yet we can't call them man of the match. So you can have men's rugby, but not man of the match.
Well, so
player of the match,
because Chris Ashton corrected himself and said man of the match. I mean player of the match.
Okay, obviously all ridiculous, and very soon this will be over. This nightmare that we've wrapped ourselves in will be over.
It'll be over faster in the US than it will in the UK.
I can say this now. So Austin, there was a period when this first came in. I was at TNT Sport, or BT Sport as it was. I was at BT when the man of the match changed to player of the match, and everyone was like, okay, but why?
Why? Yeah.
And it's like, why, but don't ask.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's like, really? Like, what? Okay, but really? Anyway, Austin was like, really? And then like, no, I'm not doing it. So he kept saying he kept saying man of the match.
Love it.
Every single. I don't think he does now, but he did for about a season.
So actually, on this, probably time to get into some politics, some filthy politics, and I can go in a lot of ways with this. But I'll start with Mario Itoje. So I think I've got wind of a story potentially brewing. Now it might be something, it might be nothing. I don't know. But this started on Thursday when I was casually browsing the internet, and a story flashed up. And maybe you could fill in the blanks here, Tim, because I imagine you'll know more about this if it's true than either me or Phil. But Sia Khaleesi has been linked to a move to Cape Town.
Correct.
Is this correct?
Well, he's been rumoured.
Yeah.
To go to Cape Town. Yes.
How substantial are all these rumours? Do you think it's a legit thing?
I've got no idea, but I know that he's he's since moving back from Paris, him and Rachel, his wife, have announced that they're divorcing, and I believe the rumour surrounds the fact that his wife and children will be in Cape Town.
Right, so he doesn't need to move back. I mean, if they were together, I'd suggest he does need to move back. But, now they're not. I'd stay in the store. Anyway.
Or if he wants to see his kids 3-4 times a week, or have them stay over a few days a week, then...
Without a plane trip,
then he probably does need to be in Cape Town.
Well, whichever. So, as soon as I read this, I was like...
But he's only going to be playing for a couple more years, so...
Well, as soon as I read it, I was like, do you know who this reminds me of? Cheslin Colby. Right, and actually, we were talking before, another Springbok as well, Johan Goosen, right, where there's never enough money, is there? And what really got me out of the Cheslin Colby situation is it's always for his family, because he's such a humble bloke. It's always for his family. And, of course, these two players are represented by which agency?
Rock Nation.
Grift Nation, of course. So grifters be grifting. It's for my family. I must go back to Cape Town, whatever it is. Okay, sure, whatever.
Well, I do think it is the case that he really, really wanted to go to Cape Town when he came back to South Africa.
Well, I mean, we all want to go to Cape Town.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Amazing place.
Partying on Long Street.
Yeah, amazing place. But there wasn't. They do not have the money that Marco Massotti does.
Well, that's not really the story here. There's a better story. So I'm like, oh, bloody Grift Nation again. So I get on the phone to a friend of mine who knows about things, and he goes, oh, well, I think you're wrong here, JB. Because I understand Sir Khaleesi did his own deal. It's like, hang about, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, he's no longer with Grift Nation. And not only is he not with Grift Nation, apparently Marcus Smith is not with Grift Nation. Mario Toji has also done his own deal, not with Grift Nation. It's like, oh, that's interesting. How do you know this? So turns out that my friend knows someone else who represents players. So I gave them a call. I introduced myself. I'm like, well, what is the situation here? Because look, I don't do Khaleesi, but he definitely did his own deal. Mario has also done his own deal. I don't know about Marcus Smith. So I don't know about Marcus Smith. But these are three
Marcus has just re-signed with
so I don't know if he did that or Grift Nation did it. I genuinely don't know, right? So that just got me thinking, like, why would all these players be leaving Grift Nation? Now, it could be numerous things, and I've not put this to them yet, so I will do that this week. So I will give them like a chance to tell me if they so decide to interact with me. It'll be completely up to them. But it's like, could it be people distancing? I can't say now. Distancing themselves because of
clearly good beer, good whiskey.
Yeah, because of, I don't know, fallout from certain legal cases in the United States with their owner. Maybe. I mean, you wouldn't want to be caught up in that now, would you? And by the way, if that is the case, I'd really like to find out what the URC have got to say about partnering with Grift Nation so much, same as the Sharks. So, there is obviously some ties there. I would just like to know, do they take this seriously? I mean, it's not dissimilar. Well, I won't say that, actually. But yeah, there's obviously some questions to be answered, I imagine. Maybe they think it's fine because it's an arm's length relationship. Maybe it's just a shareholding. I don't know. But these players have left. Anyway, I started reading some of the stuff from Grift Nation as to what it is to be one of their clients. And you look at their clients and they all have they have a certain type of clients. And then you read through the information on their own website, and it says like, oh, no, it was a Rugby Pass article. And it's got the CEO, Yormak, talking about, the foundation of what we do is speaking truth to power. I mean, can you think of anything more vomit-inducing? I mean, do you want the guy who's going to be working just really hard on the field, running back and forth, speaking truth to... Is that to referees? I mean, like, who are you speaking truth to power for?
These are people in one of the ultimate meritocracies.
Absolutely, right? It then goes on to say, using your platform, and there's another one. Sort of, I'm paraphrasing now, but reorientating rugby from the ethos of teamwork to a more individualistic style, i.e. it's about the superstar and the stars telling their story. I was like, you could not be more wrong. Like, unless you have got, I would say genuinely, there's maybe one, maybe two players in the world that can turn a game on their own. DuPont, Peter Steph the Toy. Outside of that, I don't think there's anyone on the planet who is that important to the game. They might add 5% to the team performance.
Colby and Hardy
are two that I would say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. But, I mean, they are just part of a greater collective, whereas, DuPont shows up and wins the Olympics. And he wins the European Cup. And, like, he is literally the centre.
He's out on his own.
Yeah, he's out on his own.
Is, yeah.
So, those guys are part of a team. But, they add the extra 10%, say.
Do you know, it's so interesting. Sorry, was that the... I was going to say, it's so weird that you mentioned that, because one of the questions I wanted to ask is, where has this obsession with, quote-unquote, superstars come from? Oh. Because this week, Steve Diamond was talking about it. Our friends, the Grassroots podcasters... Good Bad Rugby were doing their top 10 superstars in rugby, for which Ilona Maher was number 1, and they had Eddie Kildown in the top 5 as well.
Sorry, who? No, genuinely, who?
Is that a joke? Ilona Maher was...
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not joking. That was
the lady player.
Ilona Maher was number 1.
Yeah. Most followed rugby player on Instagram.
Wait. I would congratulate her for her incredible work on social media. She is a TikTok and Instagram superstar.
Good for her.
Way more than she is a rugby superstar. And good for her. That's brilliant.
Absolutely. Well, and she's an Olympic medalist as well. Which is no mean feat, and is wonderful. I didn't watch any of the Women's Olympics, so I've never ever seen her play. I only heard her name for the first time about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So I've never heard of her before, but I gather she's a big deal in Bristol now and all the rest of it. But I guess the broader point here is, like, Cristiano Ronaldo might have hundreds of millions of people following on Instagram, but because he's an incredible footballer. And there are people who have hundreds of millions of people on Instagram or TikTok because they're brilliant at doing social media, and good for them as well.
Yep.
But the conflation and mixing the two together like they mean the same thing.
They do not.
Yeah. I can't quite get my head around.
Right, Fiona, what's her name?
Ilona
Maher.
So, and that's not me being disrespectful. I just don't know her name, right? I don't watch women's rugby in the same way I don't watch, I don't know, or whatever.
Show jumping.
Golf.
Yes.
Darts.
No, I do watch them. But my point would be, she might have all the social media followers in the world. Then my question would be, why aren't they watching rugby? And of course it's not translatable, because if it was, they'd be watching rugby, and they're not. And they're just not. So don't, and this is basically an answer to your question, Tim. Why do people say this? Because it's a trope that they recycle because they don't know anything about this subject. So the trope is, we need superstars. And because it works in one sport, doesn't mean it's going to work in another sport. Example, basketball is superstar-based because there's 5 people on a court, right? Of course it is super...
and also because hundreds of millions of people watch it already.
Yeah, but in terms of just the dynamic... you have 2 superstars, and you're instantly 40% better than the other team, right? So it makes sense. Whereas if you've got a slightly better prop, or in Mars' case, what
centre?
I thought she was second row.
I don't know. I think she might be played on the wing. Apparently,
I think she's listed as a centre,
flanker, wing. She's just a specimen. I don't think she knows what position she is on a rugby
superb player, whatever. But she's only 1/15 of the team.
Yeah.
Right. So football as well. And also because in a rugby team, people are so specialist. I mean, Mauro Itoje is a wonderful player. He's not going to be winning games on his own. He's just a wonderful player. Right. Football, you can actually have a player that wins games on his own. Because
you've got the combination of fewer players, although not that many fewer. But football is often won by one goal.
Yeah.
So if you can score the one winning goal, which Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo inevitably do, you get the points.
What I did think about this whole superstar obsession is like I looked at it this last week, all these stories popping up and things, and I thought, yeah, no wonder Oxenshade didn't get a nomination at the World Rugby Awards. Of course not. Yeah, because they don't want to celebrate the scrum. Because
to Phil's point, if you score a goal, one person scores it. Yeah. You score a push over try. Well, technically one person scores it, but we know the truth. That was a combination of great teamwork.
Or it's given as a penalty try.
Yeah, and there you go.
Nobody scores it.
So they're fed this nonsense from these absolute grifters, people like Grift Nation, right, who haven't got the first idea of what they're talking about. And it's toxic. And it's toxic because they only say a certain type of player. They use language in their press releases and in their interviews, which is just divisive. Speaking truth to power, that's like a dog whistle. We know what you're about, some sort of progressive nonsense. But I was going to link this to something else, which is the RFU's debacle.
Well, before you go there, let me just say on this, I think Jonah Lomu is the example that someone can transcend the sport.
Yes.
I think Antoine Dupont is close to, if not already, transcending the sport. And because he is such an unbelievable player. And that's, I guess, my point with Jonah Lomu is he managed it because he was freakishly fast and strong and massive, which is just like, that's pretty cool to be that big and that quick and that athletic and that's...
And even today, watching those highlights of Lomu are still unbelievable.
Actually, if you are going to get a world star, right, a game-changing star, the chances are it will come in the women's game because, and this is not to be disrespectful, but the standard is so much lower across the board because it's not as developed yet.
Just pure physical athleticism and ability would be like Lomu being that developed before professional rugby.
Exactly right. You could easily get a Lomu in because
Lomu
would not get far today.
Most women playing rugby,
he would in the
world.
He would.
Most women playing rugby are amateur or semi-professional at best.
Yeah.
So
it is like Lomu.
Yes.
In the days. But my point is I understand the striving for a superstar because Lomu has already managed it. He had his name on a video game and was on the front of magazines and was a worldwide household name.
Yes.
But he was because of how he played and the way he played the game. Yeah. And so I don't know. Maybe if Lomu was around in an era when there was social media, he would have done some great TikToks and stuff. But the only reason I guess my point is the only reason people would have watched or cared about those or followed him is because of everything he did on the pitch. And I feel like this is weird reverse engineering where like rugby players need to do more on social media. It's like no,
they don't.
No, they don't. The amazing social media following is for the ones who want to. But there's a ceiling you're going to hit unless you are an unreal player. The exception to that is people like Alola Mar, who she's a social media star, not a rugby star.
Yes.
Maybe she'll be a rugby star as well. Great.
Yeah, I hope so.
There is, before we move on to the RFU, which you just hinted at, there is a really good podcast that touches on this, and it's a podcast I've listened to, I've recommended before, which is Acquired, and specifically their NBA episode, which I listened to recently. It's about maybe...
I've listened to the NFL one on your recommendation, and that was brilliant.
The NFL one's dynamite. I only listened to the NBA one 6 weeks ago or something like that, very, very recently, and it's brilliant because they touch on the business of the sport. And I don't know anything about the NBA other than what I've seen through like The Last Dance or anything like that, and I know the big superstars, obviously, but the business of it is fascinating. But one of the things that they talk about, and this is to your point, JB, about the superstars and of basketball, the trajectory for baseball, the number of fans that baseball has compared to football, compared to baseball, to hockey or anything else, basketball is way, way ahead of the game.
Really?
Way ahead of the game. And they attribute that to superstars and the kind of TikTok, social media, Instagram.
Well, there you go.
They
Generation.
don't actually generate any. Well, they generate a lot less money than the NFL.
Yeah, they do. They currently, but there was some stat, and I'll get this completely wrong, but the general thrust is right. Of 12 to 18-year-olds, their favourite sport, it's like 4% is baseball, 6% is ice hockey, 18% is NFL, American football, and then like 62% is basketball.
Yeah,
and they've captured those people who are not yet monetized, but in the future will be.
Yeah, so the reason
that's
I
interesting.
think that will continue.
Yeah, and it might not. It might just be this.
Is because when you come
thing.
of age and you're sensible and you're still into sports, and frankly, women don't stay into sports that long. Some do, most don't. Right? They just don't care. But particularly men, and this is why the NFL is so big in the UK, we do not grow up watching the NFL. We simply do not. Yet when we get to adult age, we start finding out that there's this monumentally gladiatorial sport and people love it. Right? So I think once you realise that sport exists, like basketball's great, it's a really good sport, but so many people watch NFL. Why? Because it's so spectacular. It is so spectacular. So I see where the whole social media thing comes in, but I just don't think it's a real thing. I don't think social media is a good proxy, and I think that Mar lady kind of demonstrates it, because where are the viewers for women's rugby?
Yeah, I think it depends which way round it is. If the superstardom is generated because of the sharing of world class, like 0.0001% skills and ability, that is different to basically the Ilona Maher thing, which is someone who has had a very good, I think, I've not followed her closely, but someone who's had a very good, very well cultivated social media scenario around more than just her throwing a rugby ball around. It's about her as a brand, as an individual. So there's a difference there.
There is. So let's just dovetail this into the RFU.
Oh yes, please.
So Tom Aloob is due to step down because of.
He stepped down, hasn't he?
I'm not sure if he's due to or.
No, he has.
He has. Right, he has.
Yeah,
Good.
because Bill Bowman has been announced as the interim chairman,
which is so the RFU council have the power to eject Tom Aloob or Alube, or however you say it, and for once it feels like the RFU council actually did something. And a part of this, going back to Richmond, who lost their first game of the week, that is not the most significant thing at Richmond Rugby Club. Richmond Rugby Club led a open letter from the National One clubs speaking in really strong terms about how disappointed they are in everything and how they need a big review of the whole game, top to bottom, independent, how the game's run. Should they separate, much like you've said before, should they separate the elite professional game and national team
and men from women,
from semi-professional and amateur? Well, they didn't mention that, but so Richmond did that, and I think that the weight of pressure grew so big that by the time that and Richmond and the other championship National One clubs timed it really well, such that by the time that meeting came around on Friday, I think the council started thinking, our constituents will have a bit of an issue if we don't actually pipe up here. So they did pipe up, and Tom Aloob went.
So I think Tom Aloob probably went because it's just not worth the hassle for him. I think that's probably one of the reasons. Now, just remember, when this guy got appointed, we were told he was appointed. It was a sort of ground-shattering appointment because he's the first minority to be appointed. I mean, that's not the reason he was appointed, but simultaneously, you'd think by reading the press announcements, it's the most important feature that he has. Although it's nothing to do with that, you understand. But it is also critical that we get that, allegedly. So he stepped down. Now, during his tenure, he was obsessed, as is Bill Sweeney, with all sorts of diversity, right? And I think these guys are not incompetent at all. They're very competent. That's why they are where they are. But they're competent with the wrong ideas. So they're pursuing these agendas which are nothing but harm for rugby. So whether it be the nonsense diversity agenda or, the elevation of women's rugby, which attracts zero money, zero spectators, is basically a drain on the men's game. It's now a cost centre. So the men make all the money, and then it gets distributed out elsewhere. They were central to all this. I mean, if you look at the amount of money that has been taken from the championship, it's almost exactly the same amount of money that has been given to the ladies' game, of which it's never paid
and
any dividends.
There are some people that would say that's good.
Well, they say good because it fits like a political agenda,
or it benefits them.
Yeah, or it benefits them. They're just rent seekers, for want of a better word. So he's gone now, and he's replaced by Bill Beaumont. But let's not get too carried away. This is not a great appointment. Bill Beaumont is the guy who came out and said something along the lines of, "We need to make the Rugby World Cup sustainable." Are you nuts, Bill? So we've gone from one set of broken ideas to a new set of broken ideas.
Well, I actually think I don't think Bill Beaumont will be in position for that long. I think he's there. I think he's there as a bit of an interim, and I think from Bill Sweeney's point of view, who, as you said, is a smart guy, and I think he might be thinking, "Oh, lovely old Bill that's well known, generally well liked. That'll quell all the negativity. Well, like Tom Aloob's been thrown to the wolves." Bill Beaumont's in, it'll all go away and Bill Sweeney will get to stay. That's the interesting question, is will that actually be the way it pans out?
I don't think Bill Sweeney wants it.
The only way that Bill Sweeney can go is nothing to do with the vote of no confidence from the constituent clubs. That could have got rid of Tom Aloob, or the council, who could have got rid of Tom Aloob. He's gone because I think he realised that's the way it's going, and if he was going to be nudged out. But Bill Sweeney goes if the board vote him out.
Yeah,
and I don't think they're going to do that.
I think with Tom Aloob, he'll go elsewhere. I mean, I don't really.
He's fine. He's got a really good CV. He's fine.
Well, he's got one of those CVs that I think was valuable a few years ago. And what I mean by that is the world's changing. So if you show up now and you're like, well, what is your what are your achievements in the RFU? Bill Sweeney, for instance, Tom Aloob. Oh well, we got the ladies to the World Cup final, but actually we've got a huge financial black hole and the game is in ruin. Like, it used to be the first thing would be really valuable because that's what everyone's looking for. And now, times are hard.
No, I mean his CV before rugby was.
Yeah,
he'll be fine.
Basically, just fueled loads of consumer debt with bargain basement credit cards, right?
He'll be fine, and there's probably a nice little undisclosed package that he goes off into the sunset with.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes. Just goes because he will have loads of other options. He does have a good CV. You are right, and he did come into the RFU as a highly qualified individual, but with no real rugby background. And the reason he came in is basically for diversity purposes. Although, of course, you're not allowed to say that. It's just that they say it on all the press releases. But I'm not allowed to say that. You just read the press release. But you can never repeat it, of course. So then you got Bill Sweeney. Bill Sweeney's ideas are completely broken. He's a man from the past. He's yesterday's man. So I don't.
What a nickname they've got for him.
Dollar Bill.
Dollar Bill.
But it's disgusting, isn't it? When you think about it, though.
Yeah.
Like Dollar Bill.
That's what he's called behind his back at Twickenham, apparently.
You try and talk about it in a rational way, and then you realise this man has siphoned off £1 million from the game, and he's done all the wrong things.
£1 million from the game when the RFU lost £40 million and 42 members of the RFU staff were made redundant.
And the salary that he started in his role on was 400,000.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
There's a thing about very wealthy men
only 400k,
and the skills you need. So, how do I put this? Depending on what your incentive structures are, depends on the sort of individual that you get. Oh, thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
What is this?
Castles in the Sky. I can't.
Blanche Whitbeer.
Rhubarb wheat.
Yeah, it's a wheat beer. You're both on wheat beers.
Rhubarb wheat.
Yeah, so my point on this was hierarchies will always exist regardless of the system that you run. So if you get a capitalist system, you'll get the person who's best at capitalism getting right to the top. If you run a more centralised corrupt system, you'll just get the guy who's really good at corruption rising to the top. And Bill Sweeney just happens to be really, really good at operating in these sorts of systems with idiots overseeing him and a completely...
He'd be great at politics.
Yeah, I think he would.
He'd be amazing. He'd be like Pelosi with $200 million.
He'd be
yes,
great.
He would.
He would be great for Bill Sweeney at politics. He wouldn't be great for the Democrat, for the populace.
No, but that's not the point, is
it?
No,
it's not the point.
Even the ones that start politics with morals. Well, it's certainly the American system. They all start and then they quickly change their tune with the cash.
But that's exactly the point. They don't last because the system isn't set up for the people with morals and vision.
Yeah.
It's set up for these oily snakes. And in a way, that's exactly how the RFU is set up. So it does not surprise me that the oiliest of all the oily snakes rose to the top when actually the incentive structure would get rid of a decent person because it just, it doesn't exist. Like if you go and listen to your local councilmen, I mean, most of them are quite nice, I guess, but they're just not. They're not cut out for the role. And they built these roles where actually, how do you get to the top? Well, it's not by doing a good job. It's by being really manipulative and being able to, navigate this labyrinth of bureaucracy, which is the RFU. And that's what Bill Sweeney's been great at.
One example of that, just again, this is politics, but this is just the world, and I think it is changing, but it's certainly still the case. If you get caught up in if you're in the public eye and get caught up in something scandalous, apologising only invites more. Well, you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Why have you done it? You need to go then. There needs to be consequences. And those people end up, the ones who do the good thing and go, I made a mistake and for which I'm really sorry, they're always gone. And so you're left with the people who never apologise, never take responsibility, never take accountability.
Ever apologise.
That would be my advice to anyone. If someone was in a situation where they were caught up, I would, as much as the right thing to do would be take accountability, make it right, I'd just say no, don't apologise.
I've said wrong things about people before and I've immediately apologised for that. The one which comes to mind is I said Semi Radradra left the NRL because of a drugs scandal, and he didn't. I got the wrong player. Right. So that was wrong, and you apologise immediately, but I'd never apologise for a point of view that I hold if I have thought it through, because I'll defend it. Right? But other people would. Oh, well, I didn't mean that thing, and then you're done. You are absolutely done.
You referring to the individual who's best for the system or best suits the system,
yes,
rising to the top. I've been reading this week about the Soviet factory whaling situation in the 20th century.
Yes.
Which is it's one of the worst examples.
Is this like something to do with the weight of catch or something?
It is that. It's one of the worst examples of the system being set up in a dreadful way, and one of my favourite sayings, the old Charlie Munger, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome, where the Soviet Union in the mid-20th century killed hundreds of thousands of whales. Not because they were a big whaling nation, not because they needed it, because they set targets and they had to achieve those targets. And if you weren't, bad things would happen if you were a whaling captain and you didn't achieve your targets. Very bad things. And there was a phrase, a quote in the literature that I was reading, which was a Soviet Union whaling captain was asked, do you not think of your grandchildren who are going to grow up in a world with no whales? And he said, well, my grandchildren can't send me to the gulag. Which is like show me the incentive. I will show you the hundreds of thousands of dead whales.
Here's another, probably even from the Soviets as well, and a little bit earlier in the 20th century, but even starker. Any farmer who had a second floor on their house was deemed to be bourgeoisie.
Yeah, I'm doing too well.
I'm in support of that one.
Profiteering.
You're doing too well, you're profiteering. So they were sent to the gulags. The reason they had the second floor on their home is because they were really good farmers. And they managed to get more out of the land than the farmer up the road. Yeah. So they were left with the farmers who didn't get as much produce off the land. And Holodomor was the outcome of that, and tens of millions of people
died. Zimbabwe, anybody?
Yeah.
So, but back to Bill Sweeney.
Yeah.
If you think about his incentives, like the mixing of the men and the women's results for international, I mean that's obviously lethal, isn't it? Because to get the women to where you need them to be, you basically have an unlimited budget for the women.
That's one of the reasons Tom Alube had to go, because he was part of the remuneration committee. The rest of them need to go as well.
He was the only permanent member of the remuneration committee.
But I mean, just think about that for a second. If you think about incentives, I don't know, what does England cost to run? I'm going to make up a number. Say it's like, I don't know, 20 million a season, right? Well, the women do not cost that. They don't cost a fraction of that. And your competitors in the same game are probably spending
1% of that.
Yeah, like nothing. So, we'll just make them more professional. And we'll give them a load of money, and then they will go to World Cup final.
And what was the stat you said? England's men's team would have had to have lost. Would have had to have had a percentage of what for him not to have got his bonus? It was something like
30%,
20% or something.
Yeah.
So there's that, but people don't realise. I mean, people just think I knock women's rugby. I don't actually care about it.
To the point that you have encouraged them. Get out and do your own thing and forge your own path. And if that means you make more money than the men, more power to you.
When I say that, I am slightly disingenuous, of course, because I'm mocking the people that say it's the best investment opportunity the world has ever seen, right? But the point on this would be, when you pay one nation loads and loads of money, and they're playing loads of nations that are not being paid loads of money, it makes a mockery of the game. So instead of having this really good spectacle of women playing other women in, broadly speaking, similar situations, whether it be semi-professional teachers, firemen, whatever it is, right? Which is genuinely inspiring. I mean, I love the fact that they've given up their time to go and play an amateur or semi-pro sport, and people have supported it. I mean, you watch the Olympics, right? And you see the person goes shooting, and he's only able to shoot, or she's only able to shoot, because friends and family have got them to that position by helping and supporting them. That's truly inspiring. It's far more inspiring than watching a bunch of women who are all on pro contracts, right, at a great loss, taking from the main game, battering women that have spent, have had to take holiday to play an international game. And we think that's a good spectacle and it should be supported, but I don't think it should, actually. I think that's really quite poor.
And some people would say, well, they should all be professional then.
Well, but I mean, they just know they can't. Yeah. They just know they can't.
If there was unlimited money, yes.
Well, I mean,
if people support it, yes, if women get out in their droves and buy tickets to Murrayfield and the Principality and the RDS to watch the women, that would be amazing.
They never think of the women they ruin it for. So when they say, yeah, we're going to just copy the Lions, why? Like, why? I mean, you don't have the player base for it. You'd be better off doing your own thing. Like, they don't think of the, when they say...
As it stands, just England v New Zealand should be what they...
That should be it. Yeah. It should be like some sort of like...
Or a little Tri-Nations, England, Canada, New Zealand.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And brand it
France at different times have been good.
I would do such a great job in charge of women's rugby. It would be frightening how good it would be, because you've got a blank sheet of paper and you can do whatever you want. But the morons, like the low IQ, low capacity idiots, right, who are currently in charge, like, oh, let's just copy the men's game. Well, your best case scenario is you have 3 professional teams go bump in 1 year. That's your best case scenario. If you really want to copy it, you have an international calendar that just doesn't work. You've got massive inequality.
What do they do in France? Like,
don't know,
because they don't just replicate the top 14 or.
No.
They don't all just have a.
Nor should they.
No, I'm genuinely interested, because as you said, they've got quite a good team.
They have it. They have it different times. They're one of the few teams that has beaten England in the last 5 years. Before we finish, I want to read a little quote here.
Yes, please.
And this is, I also want to say thank you to everyone. There's dozens of people who have written, contact eggchasers@gmail.com to us, sharing different organisations, different parts of the RFU and National One and the Referees Union and various different, all the different counties and their responses to this. We really appreciate getting all those different views. They're generally more aligned to ours than anything, but it's good to get that. And Andy C on email pointed out this, which is the response by 4 council members. So Matt Webb, Yemi Gubajobi, Roxy Fearon and Garnet McKinder, who sent an email out to the rest of the RFU in the wake of Ilyub's resignation. And see if you can guess what they are intimating, or see if you can work out what they're intimating when I read this.
I don't even need you to say any more to know what the intimation is going to be already.
You can tell already.
I can tell already.
So, quote, "We are particularly concerned by comments and behaviours of fellow council members. This has felt in no small way like a mob out to make a point and assert authority. The RFU has lost a highly professional and passionate leader who has been forced out because he does not fit the mould expected by the individuals and the echo chamber they move in. The change and uncertainty this brings is detrimental to our game. We, as co-opted members of the council, are deeply concerned that the recent actions set back the ability of the RFU and the council to deliver on the change it proclaims to seek." And they added their faith in the council to be a proactively inclusive environment open to leaders for our game who bring different experiences and expertise to help our sport evolve
companies
and attract new participants.
Hey, I tell you what, though, if you want to really defend Tom Loop, and I'm happy to do so, if you want someone who can really engage with like low-income communities and really make them part with their money, you speak to a guy who started up a credit card company, because nobody is better at getting money out of poor people than someone who owns a credit card company. So they're absolutely right.
Just on that, have either of you ever heard, this is something I've been reading about recently, have you ever heard the phrase, the reverse Robin Hood?
I can guess what it means.
Stealing from the poor and giving to the rich.
Yeah. So benefit credit cards, reward credit cards are defined as the reverse Robin Hood. So you have generally two people, low income and high income. Mm-hmm. Those on the low income, so they both pay in the same amount to get the reward credit card. Those on the low income don't spend enough to get the rewards, and they also incur massive, like 50-60% off an APR interest, which funds plus charges, which funds all the people who are high income, who extract the rewards, and they never pay. Yeah. They never pay the surcharge, the standing charge. So it's the reverse Robin Hood.
So actually, these sort of like clever little linguistic tricks which they use, like the game is what whatever they said, something like, if the game wants to be what it claims it wants, I can't remember. But Ugo Monia uses one all the time, which is, if the game is going to be what it says it wants to be, and I fell for it first, I was like, oh, yeah. Hang on, wait, who said this? Because I have never said this. I don't know anyone else that has said this. And what they mean by it when they say, if the game is going to be what it claims what it says it wants to be, what they actually mean is, if the game's going to be what I want it to be, what I've defined it
projecting.
to be, what I want it to be, because I'm morally correct and you're morally wrong because of things.
The key word in that little statement was co-opted. These individuals were brought in a few years ago, or a year ago, or something like that, or a couple of years ago, and they were brought in not elected. They were selected.
When you meet your selected councillor, you might have a. You might want to co-opt more. To be fair.
Well, quite. But at least we know the process. It might be messy, and it might be not. It might be messy, and it might feel like you can't actually change the outcome of things. But at least we could, if we cared enough and wanted to put enough work in, we could. Mm-hmm. But these people are co-opted, and they were brought in for a very specific reason, and they are only.
Yeah, and it's just such.
They're only delivering on that.
You think about where the world is and how it's changed in only 6 months, and you just think like all of this nonsense is going to have to die soon. And when you've brought in people, the co-opted members, and what they're supposedly meant to bring, they're going to go. They're going to go because nobody wants it. Nobody's interested. Nobody cares.
They've been extended for another year.
Yeah, it is. It is destructive. It is divisive. Like all of this stuff doesn't make anyone any closer. It just causes more schisms in the game. And yet here they are whinging about things, which don't need to be, just go away. Go away.
I mean, bottom line is, Tom Ilube was the one permanent member of staff that signed off on these bonuses, which it is completely disingenuous or completely short-sighted to think that people's concerns about that alone are not without solid foundation.
Unless, Tim, he signed it off because he sees things from a different background which you'd never understand, and therefore Bill Sweeney's worth it based on his background or something.
But so for that alone,
his diverse perspective.
For that alone, for signing off on those remuneration targets.
No, Tim, because this is your privilege shining through here. You can't see it from his perspective. That is Tom Ilube's truth. And those co-opted members are just pointing out that you're the narrow-minded echo chamber one. And he does deserve 1.1 million. Because why else would they be there? Why else would he be there? Unless you can identify these things from his background, which you simply can't. And if you weren't such a bigot, you would have given Bill Sweeney 1.1 million quid too.
Can I just finish with one email as well from a bit of grassroots rugby from Pete Howarth? Excuse me.
Well, we've got 2 more things to do.
Yeah, go on.
So you do that for grassroots. I've got one more thing which I want to shout out.
Okay.
And we missed a game.
Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. Pete said he had a great time visiting Wharfdale this Saturday whilst home for Christmas.
Oh, great club.
I read this.
Great club.
Yes.
I Newbury used to be in a league with Wharfdale for years, and Wharfdale always one of those clubs that just punch well above their weight.
Because their player pool is incredible.
For the local population, just they pull on the local farmers and they rely on the community.
What are most of South African internationals are what?
Farmers.
Correct. Wharfdale, say no more.
There's a few farmers in that neck of the woods.
He said a couple of conversation topics popped up which you might be interested in. The first was the claim that the Fylde Wharfdale match last weekend was the 6th most attended game in England.
Get out of here.
Is that true, or just a rumour buzzing around the stands?
It wouldn't actually surprise me that much.
Wow,
that is amazing.
I don't know who in the Championship is pulling the biggest.
Coventry.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
We all have dreams. Dream home renovations, dream vacations, or sending our kids to their dream colleges. But finding straightforward ways to turn those dreams into realistic goals, that's where things get tricky. Merrill understands that. That's why, with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. And having the bull at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill is with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
Yeah, what did they get?
They might have been away. They might have been away last week.
Yeah, so they could have been away.
Ealing aren't doing numbers.
No. But so Premiership bottoms out at 3,000-4,000 when Newcastle and Sale play.
So it wouldn't take a lot to be the sixth biggest.
So that's the top 5.
Yeah.
And then to be the 6th biggest,
I would say something.
Probably somewhere around the 1,000 to 1,500
So
mark.
it could well have been. So then the second point that Pete said came up in conversation was from the programme. There was a post in the Wharfdale programme on lower league sides getting loan players. And he sent us a screenshot of the picture of the page. And it just says in big letters at the top, in white on green, Wharfdale colours, loan players. He says, over the first half of the season, we've played a number of teams who've used the ability to call in loan players to their matchday squads. We don't tend to do this, rightly or wrongly. You decide.
Well, they might have when Leeds still existed. No,
is
not anymore.
Now, is this File saying that they don't do this?
No, this is
Wharfdale.
Okay, Wharfdale. Yeah, okay, fine.
He says, it means we can play a team one week that can look dramatically different to that team's players the previous or the following week. Having discussed this on the touchline a few times over the season, particularly at away fixtures, I felt the rules should be looked at a bit more carefully. The RFU's Regulation 14 provides a framework for player registration across rugby tiers, and the implications for lower tier clubs warrants closer examination, particularly concerning loan players. I'm wondering if I can abbreviate this some way. Under the registration, lower tier clubs benefit from the flexibility in player registration. They can register players at any point in the season and accept loans from clubs at higher levels, such as National One, Championship, or indeed the Premiership. This means a lifeline. This means a lifeline to address gaps caused by injuries or player unavailability and avoids matches being forfeited. Clubs can bring in up to 3 loan players per matchday squad, with the option of additional England Academy players under the age of 24. Rumours abound, especially in National 1, but also in National League 2 West and East, of clubs located near Premiership clubs, of coaches having the ability to call in support at key times of the season, which means there is, to quote someone I was discussing this with at a lunch in London, no predictability any week on any particular result.
Do you know, it's so true. So, sorry, just to reconfirm, Wharfdale were playing Filed, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so Filed, one of the Filed old boys is a gentleman called Warren Spragg. Warren Spragg is a kind of big cheese at Sale Shocks. So, yeah, and also not only that, I think Beaumont is a Filed man. Josh Beaumont has played at File. They've got very strong links to Sale Sharks, so just does not surprise me one bit. A lot of teams in the Northwest fight over Sale players, I think. So
definitely.
Like Macclesfield are like, well, we'll have a few now and again. This is under one of their old coaches, but it's a risk for them. It's a risk for the club loaning the player as much as it is an advantage, because that player can get recalled to Sale Shocks at any time, and then you've got a massive hole in your squad. So if you've got a key fly, so you might not necessarily want a fly half, because if that fly half goes, you're screwed.
Everything you built your team around.
And there's another example of something like this, which is it Super 6 in Scotland?
Yes.
Yeah, so Scotland's got Super 6, and the Super 6 have a draft every year. Are you aware of this?
I don't think I was aware of the draft.
So the draft in the Super 6, and if you're a Scottish rugby fan, and you should listen to Thistle first and foremost, but you'll probably know more about this than I do. It's very secondhand. But you are able, right, to draft in order anyone you want from Glasgow or Edinburgh, and I mean anybody, right? So if you want to go for
Hugh Jones,
you can draft Hugh Jones, and if he's not playing for his club, he plays for you.
Yeah, so if he's not selected on the weekend and he's not injured.
Now it becomes games, right? Because you don't want to select Finn Russell back in the day, because you're never going to see him.
Yeah,
right? So forget it. But you could do it, and on the off chance, he might play for you. So Finn Russell will go very, very low down in the draft. So then they start doing things like, okay, if we draft a tight head, we just need to carry on drafting tight heads for the next 8 rounds, because we'll always have a tight head. So it becomes very, very strategic how you load players. So it's not the panacea that people make out. In fact, far from it, because you're at the mercy of the bigger club, who will just rescind that loan depending on what their needs are.
Well, this little page in the programme finishes like this. In our division, clubs tend to pride themselves on their pipeline of minis and juniors. And this sort of speaks to what we've been talking about in recent weeks about clubs keeping teams going. Minis and juniors. And personally speaking, I regard this as essential to maintaining the integrity of the division. Look at the number of our first team squad that started learning their skills on a Sunday morning, age 10. We're rightly proud of this system. The work our mini and junior coaches and parents do every week is to be commended and epitomises our community spirit. I hope there are many more future greens in the Upper Wharfdale and Greater Skipton primary and secondary schools raring to join the minis programme. Yeah. Today is Stephen Graham and the under-13s we celebrate, but each programme we showcase, also they have a different team come in and play, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, while I accept the flexibility of loaning players is invaluable for player welfare and match continuity, I would urge the RFU when meeting and reviewing rules at the end of the season to ensure loan rules don't unintentionally undermine the competitive integrity of lower leagues, preserving a level playing field for all participants.
Yeah. Do you know what I think the big problem is? Is if you have, say, a guy on the coaching staff who is linked to a club. So, I'll give an example. Sale Sharks. Mm-hmm. They've got guys linked to Fylde there. And by the way, I'm not saying they do this. So I want to be absolutely clear. I'm pretty sure they would never do this. In fact, I know they wouldn't. But potentially you could see, couldn't you, when it really mattered, certain loans being pulled from clubs who are against your club, your home club.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger problem is not the loan so much, but the potential for corruption. And I think that's a far, far bigger issue. I think loans are fine. It comes with its own risks and its own rewards, but the potential for corruption is quite high.
Well, the bigger point here would be what you've said before, and which I agree with, which is Premiership clubs. I don't think should have the academies.
Yep,
and more players should play for the lower clubs, because that would have the opposite effect of what they're referring to there. And actually, the standard of rugby that you would get in National 1. Yeah. National 2 North or South or whatever the case may be is a really high standard.
But there's another element of this which I've found more and more, which is local clubs, as they climb the leagues, they stop really becoming clubs which want to produce things, and more clubs that want to take things. So this can be money. Locally, like Talk H will do this. Talk H will say, we want links with the university, then all local clubs are fighting for links over the... I mean, really, what it should be is the clubs provide players to universities. We don't take them from university. I mean, look, we're here. If you go to university and you want to play for us, by all means do so. But it shouldn't be like all the clubs are, we just want the university players, or we just want links with higher clubs and loans. You're meant to produce your own players. Now, if you don't produce that many players in a given year, or your offer is not great enough in order for you to attract players, accept your fate and be the best that you can be with the boys that you have at the level that you are. But I think it gets very toxic when you get to a point where it's like, right, how do we improve the team? And it's not about what we have in our club; it's about things out of the club which we can attract in.
Or it's not thinking 2, 3, 4 years down the track. It's just it's treating the wound superficially rather than
there's a
and eventually you're gonna have to chop a leg off.
Well, Tolton are quite a good example of this. They have a really good community club. They come through, but also they offer a great escape route for people that are just are not getting on at Preston or Blackburn, because it's not for everyone. So you can build a club which has an attraction to a certain person, and that will draw people in. But too often I hear directors of rugby talking about, we'll just try and go on bended knee to MMU, or go try and persuade.
Yeah, that's what Broughton Park do. They've got every member of Manchester Metropolitan University Rugby Club gets an automatic membership of Broughton Park.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. I mean, you've got to try everything. You've got to try absolutely everything.
And Manchester is one of those cities, as you know, at Talk H, where a very high proportion of people who go to University of Manchester stay in Manchester.
Yeah. I mean, that will almost certainly pay dividends at a certain point. But again, if you're a grand club like Broughton Park, you should be producing your own players. You should be sending players to university, not taking them from the university, because you should be the institution.
Well, as I've talked about, they don't have a Colts team this year now.
I wonder how that happened. Poorly run. Except for the under-16s, which,
Well, they were the Lancashire Cup champions, but there is no under-17s now.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Incredible. So, we missed a game.
Sale Exeter. Predictable.
Unfortunately, it was predictable.
Did you go?
I did not.
Alex Anderson, at the very end of the show, I was flicking around after the game, but I flicked back on. It was just the very end. And Alex Sanderson just went, yeah, you're talking to TNT Sport. He was like, yeah, your supercomputer thing gave us a 10% chance of getting to the playoffs. And look at us. At least till tomorrow, we're in 4th. So screw you, supercomputer. That was his last word.
He's a Luddite. You're going to smash up ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I think he would smash it. He's one of the few men who could actually probably achieve that.
Yeah.
It was too predictable. I need to have a real... I've not watched Exeter for a couple of weeks now, but I'm going to have a real good look at them because I'd be interested to see what's going wrong. Henry Slade at 10. I mean, I think we all thought to differing degrees that he could make a difference, but again, I don't think one player makes a huge difference. This seems to be the case here.
And it's
it's more fundamental, isn't it?
One player with a lot of experience as a great kicker who's actually playing out of position because he's hardly played.
Yeah.
He's now 31 or 32. He's hardly played any top level rugby at 10.
And on the other side, George Ford led Sale, just ripped them to pieces. I mean, just rip them to bits. So I've only seen the highlights. I've seen every other game, not this one. But next week, actually, is there a Premiership next week?
There is.
Yeah.
Good, because next week I'm watching Sale and I'm watching Exeter start to finish.
Well, let's talk about next week's games just very quickly because this is going long, and we're going to do a patron.
Yeah, we are.
And we need
I'm not
another
going
beer.
out for some beers. Tim's not, but we are.
I can't.
So next Friday, 27th, in that twilight period in between the
Not
purgatory.
sure what day is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bristol host Sale at Ashton
Ooh,
Gate.
interesting.
I can't see anything else but a Bristol win.
Yeah, same.
Sale.
Whoa.
Bristol are not going to have McGinty.
No. That is a loss.
And Bristol are unbeaten in 2024 away from home.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a small caveat there.
Remarkable.
And they are at Bristol. And I think
yeah.
Sale have got the number. I think Sale will do it.
Then
that'll be
on
close.
Saturday the 28th, we've got three separate time slots for this. So we've got 1:45, Bath hosts Saracens, which that'll be a good fixture.
That's dynamite, that.
Now, Saracens, who are thin on the ground in the back three. So obviously Liam Williams, who's not a bad player to bring in at short notice, came in. He took a very heavy knock early on in the game, played through the game, went off with about 10 minutes to go.
Manny Yogan smash.
Was that Manny Yogan?
Yogan and Langdon levelled him.
I like Yogan. But Daly pulled out before the warm-up with a hamstring injury. Good has got a quad injury. And there's other people, Shagun and others, who are unavailable. They'll be bringing great mates and Lewington out with a cryo chamber.
Do you know, I
soon
think
enough.
about Saracens, as I do. And they got a lot of stake, didn't they? Rightly so, for, financial impropriety. But there's obviously a lot more going on there than financial impropriety, because the amount of lads that have rejoined, presumably not on the same amount of money as well, but were happy to come back because Saracens are Saracens, is quite remarkable.
Not on the same amount of money, comparable amounts of South African farmland, though.
Yes, of course. And, that does count for something. But yeah.
So Bath, I think Bath are going to win that.
I'll go Bath.
I think Bath as well.
Then Northampton Saints need to right the wrongs.
By the way, if you look at the table,
yeah,
I think Northampton Saints are out of this.
They're in.
I think they're
eighth.
done.
So they are in eighth. They are 10. They're currently 10 points off.
Top two look very comfortable, right?
It's
Bath and
a
Bristol.
short season, though, isn't it?
It's an 18-game season that we are 8 games into.
Very nearly halfway.
So
it will be halfway after this one.
Yeah.
So you look at those top two. I think they're going to cruise it. I think there's not much. The next 4 is brutal.
Well, I wouldn't even say that because Gloucester are outperforming. So the 2 disappointments are Quins and Northampton Saints.
Oh,
they're in 7th and 8th. And they are really disappointing compared to where they could be. And for both teams, they have... so both Harlequins and Northampton Saints, as very attack-minded teams, the only 2 teams that have scored fewer points than them are Newcastle Falcons and Exeter Chiefs.
Yes.
Which is not what you would expect of those 2.
Yeah, so the problem with this table, as it stands, is twofold. One, I think the top 2 are basically untouchable now. I think they'll cruise to where they need to go because they're high quality.
I tend to agree.
Fine, they're done,
and they've both got depth.
The next 4 are in a death fight. But what's different this year is that the bottom 2, I don't think they're giving up. So last year you had Newcastle and they were dumb.
Yeah,
Like, every time they showed up, they were pathetic. I think they will spring another 2-3 surprises. Right, so
I can see them getting another couple of wins.
Yeah, I think they finished the year on 4 wins.
They are the biggest Ealing Trailfinders supporters in the land.
Yes, quite. But then Exeter, Exeter will not be taking this lightly because this team is not being disbanded. It's not like it's a bunch of veterans which they just, right, let's clear house and we'll start again. This is it for Exeter.
This is the start of the rebuild.
Oh, by the way, I completely forgot to mention, it was Coventry at home to Ealing Trailfinders. And Ealing Trailfinders started the game like 5 points ahead of Coventry. And Coventry are a team who are fighting in the courts to be able to be promoted should they win the right to. And they lost to Ealing. So basically, Ealing are 11 points clear now. So I think it's going Ealing's way.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Which means there will be no playoff.
No,
playoff. So, what was I saying then?
Sorry.
Yeah, and then the other two Northampton Harlequins are far from bad teams.
They're good teams, just playing badly in the Premiership.
Who would you most like to see get a top 4 space? Who is unlikely to? Because there's one team that I'd love to see.
I'd love to see
Gloucester. Gloucester.
I'd love to see Gloucester.
Gloucester's the team that I really want.
Is this year Gloucester's year?
I think they're going to...
So they could sneak into the top 4 and then on a dry track, middle of May...
I think they're good.
They could beat anyone.
Yeah. Not only that, like they started pretty poorly, right? And I think they're only getting better. Like, is Max Llewellyn's first year? Is it not?
Maybe not, but it's definitely Anscombe's and Thomas Williams.
They are dynamite. I mean, maybe not so much Anscombe, but certainly Thomas Williams. You've got this young front row that seems to be performing. I just like them. I like the way they play. And also Skivington deserves some sort of credit because he's a line-out. He was like the London Irish line-out guy.
Yeah,
he comes into Gloucester. He makes a formidable line-out team. And they're not that anymore, are they? They're not like a forwards-based line-out team. They're something completely different. So I don't know if he's lost control or he's relinquished control, or is that the same thing? Like, has he said, like, these are the players we have? Either way, he's either super pragmatic or he's not in charge. I don't know which one it is. But he deserves credit. I think they're doing well.
I think he deserves credit. I think that's where I want to give it. So I'm going to.
They've got the weirdest coaching setup. The ferocious Don Waldock,
defence coach, and looking at how many points they've conceded, that stacks up. And Billy Twelvetrees, I'm pretty sure, is like a part-time attack coach. You look like a team who's got Don Waldock as your defence coach.
Correct.
He's not a compliment, is it?
The Don Waldock.
Does Billy Twelvetrees have a drill where it's like miss 2 into touch? Yeah.
Well, this is exactly it. You don't expect precise attack from Billy Twelvetrees, do you? So it just seems to be working, and I love how they play. So long may it continue.
Right, last fixtures. Let's go through. We've got Northampton Saints hosting Newcastle Falcons.
Sorry, just one last thing.
No,
I just want to say, through my conversations with Mark Atkinson,
yes,
right, he says Don Waldock is a phenomenal defence coach. So we may mock him, right? But that is from the horse's mouth.
And I'm certain Billy Twelvetrees did not have a drill which is miss 2 into touch.
Yes. If you catch it, you're doing it wrong.
So Saints are going to beat Falcons at home at 3:00 on Saturday. And then Quins host Tigers, 2 teams who desperately need a win after this last weekend. I think Harlequins are going to win that. I think they're going to finally get their hands on the right way round.
Well, I heard
catch a couple of balls.
Yeah,
I heard this week most of the Tigers squad were struggling with food poisoning.
Ah,
right. Now I don't know.
It did look like that.
Yeah, mind you, food poisoning doesn't mean you can, or not having food poisoning doesn't mean that you can't defend over the top balls, does it? I mean, like, that's got nothing to do with food poisoning.
It's just the weakness that you washed out on.
Yeah, but they look pretty physical to me. The physicality wasn't a problem.
So what you're saying is Pat Lam did like what South Africa did to New Zealand in '95.
Well, they were accused of doing.
Yeah, they've had their covert chef in there for a while.
Sounds about right. It's not who I want to win. Who do I think will win? Tigers. Give me Tigers.
Quins at home.
Quins at home.
Quins.
And then the final game,
good game though,
could be Exeter Chiefs' first win, although it could be Gloucester's continuous march towards the top 4. Chiefs host Gloucester.
Yes, come on, Gloucester.
I think that'll be a good game.
It will be.
I think that'll be a good game. I'm going to go for Chiefs' first win.
Yes.
Is that home or away?
It's at Sandy Park.
Right, that's awesome, which means the week after, Gloucester are at home, if that is a Premiership weekend. Because if it is, I'm in Cheltenham. It
is. And guess who on the Saturday the 4th of January, guess who travelled to...
Not Newcastle, not Dimes.
Not Dimes. Second for James.
Sale.
Do they?
Hop on the bus, Jay.
I will do.
There we go. We should have another beer and record a Patreon pod.
Yes,
The Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yes.
God, there's been some research gone into this.
Right, I need a wee before we
Me
do.
too.
So, with that, let the boys end.
Beautiful.
Hi, this is Jonathan Fields, host of The Good Life Project, where each week I talk to listeners about investing in their future by increasing their own vitality. But when it comes to those financial goals, whether it be saving for a home renovation, growing your child's college fund, or travel, life can make it difficult to stay the course. By working with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. Having the bull at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Holiday shopping is here, and Amazon Live has got you covered. Shop for the perfect gift from the comfort of your home with Amazon Live's shoppable video experience. Discover the hottest products from influencers and shop while you watch. This season, join Candy Burris from Real Housewives in her holiday Amazon Live series, Generation Face Off, where Candy, her mom, Mama Joyce, and daughter Riley share their favorite stocking stuffers and go-to gifts across fashion, beauty, and more. Watch and shop new episodes of Candy's series Generation Face Off now by going to amazon.com/candylive. That's amazon.com/candylive. For a limited time, use promo code CANDYLIVE for $5 off an eligible product featured on the first episode of the series. That's KANDILIVE. Promotion expires on December 25th, 2024. Limited supply of goods. Terms and conditions apply. For full promotion terms and conditions, go to amazon.com/candyterms.